This is the finish today, Cortina d'Ampezzo. We've been here a number of times before. Fausto Coppi has won here, Louison Bobe has won here. A big list of very famous names winning. But it's a massive day in the Dolomites today with huge climbs, 4 of them. We sent Dan Lloyd and Michael Barry out to have a good look and tell you exactly what they're in store. But first, let's look back at yesterday. The pink jersey coming home safe. And Joaquim Rodríguez being the man keeping the pink jersey. This is Valerio Piva. Our objective is to secure the pink jersey. And we saw Joaquim the other day increase his gap on some of the pursuing riders, especially Hesjedal. Oh, he's the most dangerous rider in the overall standings against the clock anyway. From tomorrow evening onwards, we will really know who can win the Giro and who can't. It'll be absolutely clear. Well, will this man, Ivan Basso, who had a reasonably easy day yesterday, be in control of things today? This is Roberto Amadio, Director Sportive of Liquigas. For sure, the Giau is a true climb. The whole climb is 10 to 12% gradient, never gets any less, but at least it's steady. If a rider feels in shape, he can make a difference there. The Passo Duran is also a great climb, but Ivan will try and set the pace. It's definitely the most difficult stage, apart from the Pompiego, stage 19. Roberto Demani talking about Scarponi. The problem is you only have to have one moment of weakness and you can lose the race over 1, 2, 5 kilometers. Everything is built so far and can be ruined in, I suppose, the twinkle of an eye is what you'd say. What's more, when you get to specific heights, there's problems with oxygen debt, recovery, and it's not just the physical but the mental side as well. Well, this is where we're finishing today. This is Cortina d'Ampezzo. We've got a few technical problems apparently with Daniel Lloyd's and Michael Barry's report. We'll try and bring that a bit later if we can. Here is exactly what we're up for today. 19 degrees, so it's a bit warmer than it has been. Stage 17 from Falzes to Cortina d'Ampezzo. And 4 monster climbs today to go over. It is incredibly difficult. The first coming after about 50 kilometers or so, 20 kilometers or more than 20 kilometers climbing up to the Passo Valparola. Then over the Passo Duran, which is the probably the toughest, the ones in the middle. Then the Stolanza, and then finally over the Passo Giau. This is the profile. Look at that. That is horrible. The Valparola, followed by Duran, the Forcella there, up to Stolanza, and then finishing down into Cortina, which is a 17-kilometer run down after you get over the top of the Passo Giau. This man has to do something today. Jose Rojano has been soundly called out by his Director Sportive, Gianni Savio. Yesterday we saw it on Eurosport. Today is the day when we will see if people can not so much win but lose this Giro d'Italia, because if somebody decides to wring the neck of this race today, then riders like Pozzovivo, for example, may decide that today on the Passo Giau he will put the hammer down. The big problem is the descent. There were some umbrellas up to start at the beginning. It was a little bit overcast, but largely dry. The weather plays a huge part in today. At the moment, it's dry and fine, and the finish, a lovely, bright, breezy day here in the Giro d'Italia. It may have been different if it had been the sort of conditions we'd had 2 or 3 days ago. But at the moment, a group of riders have made their way out from the peloton, including that man there, Rabottini, trying to get some more points in the bag for the mountains classification. And the riders in the break, including Thomas Roriga there. Rabottini in the blue jersey of mountains leader, wanting to put some distance into the rest of the peloton. This is where it is at the moment. Samalau at the front there. You can see the unmistakable look of Kevin Sildrez hunched over the bike. One of the most distinctive riders in the peloton. You can just see by the way he rides. He's sort of little compact, full of energy all the time, pounding on the pedals. Beautiful day once again. The men in the breakaway are Matteo Monteguti from AG2R La Mondiale, Jose Serpa from Androni, Kevin Sildrez from Astana, and Matteo Rabottini from Farnese Vini. And the final man is Branislav Samalo of Movistar. This is the peloton. It's being controlled at the front by the pace, being controlled by Sky, Bernard Eisel, and the world champion in the red points leaders jersey, Mark Cavendish, reverting to pace-setting duties. They have Sergio Enyo up towards the top of the general classification, Sky. What a bright future that young man from Colombia has. Fantastic riding so far, and he has the best young riders jersey on his shoulders. Okay, the housekeeping, as we see our men in the breakaway. They had about 2.5 minutes, a little bit further back. I think that's pulled out a bit now. This is the front of the race. We haven't got a time gap recently. Joaquim Rodríguez leads overall in the pink jersey. Cavendish in the red jersey of points leader. With Joaquim Rodríguez not that far behind, but he didn't get any yesterday, which was the main thing. Rabottini with 41 points is there in the break. He leads the mountains classification. He's in the blue jersey, and they've managed to get Selle Italia shorts to sort of match there. As you can see, blue with yellow striping, the Farnese Vini rider. You can see the Selle Italia on the back. It's an Italian saddle manufacturer, and they are one of the sponsors. But that works quite well. And Sergio Enyo of Team Sky holds the best young riders jersey over Rigoberto Urán, his teammate, and then Brambilla of the Colnago team at 2 minutes and 50 seconds. It's all to play for today, but it's all about the weather. The weather has been remarkably good over the last couple of days, and I think every single rider in the peloton will be pleased about that. But it does alter the tactics. We shall see who puts who under pressure. I fear it may be a slightly damp squid, but we shall see. We have to take a short commercial break. We'll be back, and then we'll be chatting to Sean about the prospects for today. Kevin Sildrez, you see what I mean about that style. He always looks as though he's got on the bike for the first time, actually. Keeping the pedals around. There's Samalo here at the back. He's a strong rider. We've not seen much of him this year. But Jose Serpa just sitting in there and turning the pedals over. Matteo Monteguti. There's Izagirre, yesterday's winner, second in line there. And of course, Sean Kelly is in the commentary box alongside me today. Sean, it's a massive day today. I'm not sure it's going to be quite as dramatic as it could be. Largely because we have very, very good weather. And a lot of the guys are still looking at each other, and there's still a massively difficult day to come on Sunday. But that's not to say there couldn't be fireworks somewhere. Well,
it's a day where we could see a big battle, and when you look at what we have on the menu for today, of course, we're into stage 17, and that's all starting to mark the riders. Tiredness is going to be a problem, and the big favourites, if you're feeling a little bit off on the day, or maybe you're feeling a bit tired, well then you could be seen today and you could start losing time. And 4 major climbs, of course, and really long ones as well. 14.5k the first one, then a 13k, then a 12.3, and then a 9.8 kilometres, and that final run down to the finish as well. That could be spectacular. 17k downhill. So there's everything there on the table for people to try something, and there's a lot of opportunities, because when you get into the the final 50k, we're in the mountains big time, 3 big climbs, and of course that final climb It's a difficult one. The Giau we've seen before, it's caused a lot of problems, and I'd not be surprised if we see somebody having a go. And there's riders there on the general classification we've talked about a lot. They need to do something, who are a bit further down. Poziviv, of course, will he wait until the mountaintop finishes, or will he have a go today? Difficult to see him because that's downhill, but again, he might try and go on the climb because to get ahead for the descent, in case, as we see a number of days ago, Astana, they really pushed it on. It was wet conditions, of course. Today, better conditions for racing is much more safer, but you always have to be so careful. As a favourite, you have to, and we could hear the directors talking as well. A lot of them were talking as if today was the last mountain stage. They were saying today is the day, but if you look at Friday, Saturday, we have 2 major mountain days again. So, there's a lot more after today, but it could be a big decisive one today, and we could see who's not going to win Giro.
Yes, I think that's the important thing, isn't it? Not who is going to win, but who isn't going to win here. Descending then, well, it might well come down to that last climb of the Passo Giau, which at 9.8 kilometres is relentlessly steep. There will be some people who clearly set the tempo on going up. If Liquigas are allowed to control it again, Sean, they'll set a pace that's not fierce, but hard enough for people not to attack out of it. But you've got a question about Basso's descending ability. I know it's dry here, and I know he's not a bad descender. He doesn't like the wet, and he's much better in the dry. But we had this discussion a little earlier before we came on air. If you put up Vincenzo Nibali as the team leader for Liquigas and watch them descend, and we saw it a lot last year, Liquigas are quite capable of getting to the front and absolutely hammering it on the descent and leaving everybody trailing in their wake because they know their team leader is up to it, and in general, as a team, they are very good descenders. Put Basso in the team as the team leader, and they are a little bit more cautious. They have to drop back. They've lost him on 2 or 3 occasions and had to go and collect him. He's not that happy. And Astana, possibly, we saw what their intentions were the other day, can put Basso and a number of other people, Rojano, Pozivivo, under pressure on that final descent, if it all comes down to that.
Well, of course, we've seen it in the past, and we've seen it in this Giro, where Basso, he doesn't like the wet descents, that is sure. The wet ones he doesn't like. The dry ones he can get down quite well. And for Liquigas and the team, it's a total different situation. If you have Nibali here, well, then you can go to the front and just go as fast as you like, and he's going to be in your wheel now. And there's going to be a problem to keep him from passing you on the descent.
Yes.
Well, here's a total different situation with Basso. They make the descent and they have to look around a lot. And we've seen there when it was descent in the wet conditions, they just come back through the group. Basso slips back himself and he goes back. He starts very much to the front because they make a good pace on the mountain, as we've seen so much in this race. But then when it starts going downhill, there's riders that go around him when they get a little bit of a straight section, and he loses, back to 5th, then back to 10th, and then back to 15th place, and eventually he's in 25th place. And the riders have to come back with him. There's always 2 or 3 of the riders from Liquigas. We see the fluorescent jerseys there, and they just come back with him and try and stay with him. And I suppose to be there with him, and when they get a bit of a straighter section, then they can just ride on and bring him back into the group. But he's had difficulties in this one. But again today, dry conditions, I think Liquigas and Basso will be really happy with the weather today.
I think they will. Do you think, considering the route for this year, the parcours for this year, and the situations we've had with the weather so far, all things being equal, let's assume that Ivan Basso and Vincenzo Nibali were able to come into the Giro d'Italia with the same level of fitness. Do you think that Nibali would have been a better choice?
Difficult to say. Nibali, of course, in the big mountains as well, I think he would suffer, and we've seen him in the past, in the Vuelta, very impressive. But when you get real big mountains, there's a number of riders there to put him under pressure, and I think he would be in difficulty here as well. But that's not to say he would limit his losses and take the opportunities well in any descent we've had and we're going to have in the next number of days, where he would try and push ahead and take time out of a lot of the favourites. We would have certainly seen some spectacular descents, I think, already in this race and in the next days. And today, if we had Nibali here, he definitely, if he was in front of the group of all the favourites. Well, he would make, after Giau, he would make a spectacular descent for us. But
would he not? Yeah.
it's difficult to know. I think it would have been difficult for Nibali, but again, Liquigas has decided Basso was the man here, and they were talking about maybe the two of them, but as we know, Nibali, he's looking at Tour of France and going to concentrate on that, and it's all for Basso on this one. And I think they're doing a very good job. When you look at Basso's situation at the moment, 122 in the general classification, cruising at 126. Basso is, defending quite well there, and depend on how he holds up in the next couple of days. For all the favourites there, and Rodríguez as well, I'm concerned about the next number of days.
Yeah.
Will he be able to keep going as he has been? Because he's had a spectacular race right from the earlier part, and I think Basso is the one, who's been coming into shape, starting off this race, and maybe he's getting better, and they're making the race exactly the way he wanted, making tempo on the front on every climb, getting him into the position he needs to be on the climbs, and we see the team just riding away and keeping a real strong pace, and then Basso taking over and pushing on the pace. So interesting to see again today, and in the next days to see what exactly will Basso do. But the position in the moment, he's definitely a big shout to win this Giro.
I was going to ask about Rodríguez in a minute, but we'll just concentrate on these 5 men for just a second. These are the men in the break. Matteo Monteguti at the front for AG2R, just peeling off now, and the all blue with the yellow helmet coming through, the mountains classification leader at the moment, Matteo Monteguti. Matteo Rabottini. Monteguti has just got back. Rabottini. Behind him, Kevin Seldrez of Astana, and then Jose Serpa of Androni. And the final man in the break is Branislav Samalau there in the Movistar kit at the back. Coming up to the top, or near the top, of the Passo Valparola. Really long, horrid climb, this one, Sean. It goes on forever, this thing.
It certainly does, and if you're out in the breakaway, well, you can just work at it, and everybody here is contributing to keep the pace going on the front, but they're not attacking each other, or they're not any sudden accelerations. We're back in the bunch. You just never know what could happen. Some of the teams that might have missed the break, they might be under orders to attack on this one out of the bunch, and in that case, well, the pace would change a lot in the peloton, but up front here with our 5 leaders, it's the place to be, and they're doing a very good job at the moment. But it's been a long climb, and they're getting close to the top now. Another, I think, 2 kilometres maybe.
Yep.
We should be getting to the summit. So they're in a nice position, and of course Rabottini, he's trying to take as much points as possible for the mountain classification.
Yeah, and if he can stay out there today for pretty much all of it, then he should be in a good position by come the end of the day to say, well, I am the mountains leader and winner. Here comes Monteguti, just putting the jacket on. It's pretty cold from the it doesn't matter how warm it is when you're going up, Sean. This is the big problem, isn't it? If you're putting some effort in, and you've got this really long descent now, all the way down into the bottom of the valley before you get to the Passo Duran, you can get pretty cold running down there.
Well, of course, at the summit here, we're around 2,200 metres almost. So it's cold, and we can see here the snow is lying about. Conditions are very cold. But again, when it's dry, you can, as we can see, just put on the rain mat there, and that will get you down to the centre without getting too cold. As we see Rabottini going over the top here, they're a bit closer than I thought to the summit. So they're over the top of the first climb of the day.
How appropriate, stuffing a copy of Gazzetta up the front of his jersey, the Italian sporting newspaper that sponsors the Tour of Italy. Hence all the pink you see around, the pink jersey. Monteguti goes flying past him. It's fine. Rabottini needed to get to the top of the climb first and gain the points. And this is a long, long, long descent down into the valley now. And we get to the bottom at Argordo, and then turn into the Passo Duran, which arguably, Sean, although it's much shorter, is nastier because it's a pretty steep old climb, the Duran. Yes. Nasty thing.
Yeah, it is a nasty one. That's still 13 kilometres, so it's a long one, but at the beginning, the run-in slope, it's flat in the beginning, and it just kicks up gradually, but then there is sections in it where it kicks up to 14%, and the percentage, 9%, 10%, for a long time there, over a 3-4 kilometre section, so that is going to hurt. And again, depending on what happened here, our 5 leaders out in front, they will just work away at it, because it's still a long ways to go from that one, and there's 2 other major climbs to come. Back in the bunch, will we see some action at that point? And if we do on the Passo Duran, well, the peloton will really explode totally, and we could see some of the the favourites having difficulty.
Yep, that is the other option, of course, isn't it, Sean? That somebody may well attack on the Passo Duran if they think they've got the legs to go. It's still a long way. It's sort of 70k by the time they get to the top. Or 70k, while they start to go up the Passo Duran. It's incredibly steep. But if somebody attacks on there and they can get down the other side and away, Sean, there's no respite between each hill. It's one goes into another. There's no flat bottom of the valley to go along at all. By the time you start on the Duran, that's it. It's climbing and then and dropping right the way for the rest of the day.
Yes, well, there's no flat at all then when you get to the summit of Passo Duran. It's just up and downhill, and that's the way. Just a little bit at the finish. Maybe in between the 2 climbs there's a little bit of a flatter section, but very, very little. So no great recovery time, and also, if you get into the attack, on the climbs you're going uphill, and then on the descents you can really push on. So it is possible. Although at that point I'd say the big favourites might be a little bit worried going in the attack at the Passo Duran. It's still a long ways out, and with 2 other major climbs to follow, I think more to be for the final climb of the day, where we should see some of the attacks, because it is also a 9.8k, and that is a real difficult one. The Giau is one where you can really create a difference.
Just some shots of Monteguti correcting the bike there. The descent roads are not very nice, one has to say. Okay, we need to tell you a few riders out today. Daryl Impey and Theo Bos didn't start. Impey from Orica Greenwich, of course, Theo Bos from Rabobank. Safe to say this is not a Theo Bos type of day. And Peter Kenyuk abandoning today. And so 3 riders out. We've had a number of finishes in Cortina and Passo in the history of the Giro d'Italia, the first one being back in the 1930s. 1939, stage 16, was won by Secondo Magni. And I think the most famous probably victories in Cortina and Pozzo were from Fausto Coppi back in 1951, and from Trieste, and Louison Bobe in 1955. Actually, that was again from Trieste. The last time was in 1997 with Giuseppe Parletto winning the stage into Cortina. We'll take a short break. Gap is about 4.5-5 minutes. Just look at that. The Dolomites. Passes down for Agnoli. That's Matteo Carrara. It is a big problem for some riders, Sean, isn't it? You can see Agnoli's now pushed the glasses back up again onto his face, but it's quite common, isn't it, to sort of push the glasses down the nose. You go through those tunnels, you go from bright sunshine into dark tunnel. All sorts of things can happen if you're not very careful.
Yes, well, it is scaring, because you go into the tunnel from the bright sunshine, and suddenly the tunnel can get quite dark in there, and if you have your shades on, it makes it more difficult again, and you get quite scared when you go into the tunnel, so you have to just take off your lenses, and gives you a bit more clear vision.
Kevin Childrez at the back here of the 5-man breakaway. Just to remind you once again who they are. Serpa of Androni. Childrez at the back of Astana in the turquoise. The man in the blue shorts ahead of him with the yellow on it is actually Rabottini. Don't think it's somebody from Colnago or somebody similar to Rabottini, the mountains classification leader, riding for Farnese Vini. Samalop of Movistar in the dark blue. And there is Monteguti in the brown shorts of AG Tour Le Mondial. We managed to catch Jean-Gadret this morning. I'm not going to wait, says Gadret's about today, of course. I'm going to dynamite the race, is what he says. If I've got good legs, I won't hesitate to take on my responsibilities and attack. Is it better to wait for the Giau or start the attack on Duran? I think it's better to be patient and wait for the Giau, because after this climb you've got a long descent. So in my opinion, it's better to wait for the last climb to make bigger gaps. Are you in agreement with that, Sean? You've got to be super confident, super fit to go on the Duran.
Yes, I think to go on the Duran you have to be with a number of riders, and I think if you have a group of riders, okay, but if you're pretty much alone. Gadret, of course, the team, I think that is the problem as well. He's not going to have riders who can make a pace for him on the front of the bunch in the earlier climbs, because they don't seem to be at that level, and he hasn't got really a team to do that. So you can only just go on the final climb on the Giau and then the descent of 17 kilometres. But that is definitely a climb for Gadret, and he's placed in the general classification. He's down there in 15th position. He's 3:34 down on general class. He's another one. The time trial is going to be a big problem for him the final day, and to get anywhere where he was in the classification last year on the podium, he has to start making tracks into that time he's down, and today is an opportunity, and the gradient of the climb as well should suit him, very steep, and he said he's going to lighten up the race today. He's going to really make it good and exciting, and looking forward to that.
There's Carrara pushing down on the descent of Valparola. I think he's just going down faster because he can. I suppose is he attacking? No, not really. There's another Movistar rider with him. 104 kilometres to go, but interesting to see who's just holding station. We were mentioning Rodríguez earlier, Sean. If somebody does light up this race on the Duran, I'm a little bit concerned as to whether Rodríguez has the overall endurance to make it all the way up the Giau as well. Well, somebody can set a good pace.
Yes, well, we've always seen Joaquim Rodríguez. He seemed to get into difficulty on some of the days in the big mountains, and where there's a number of climbs, it's happened in the past. But this year he's in exceptional form. The team as well is really working well for him. So the morale is going to be, so good. He's got the morale of his life in this race, and the way he's been riding. And is the form going to hold on good enough? Is he going to be good enough in these real difficult climbs? And the steep ones is the ones which he don't really like, when they're very, very steep. They're not his cup of tea. But again, he's in the commanding position at the moment, and the team he has got is be interesting. But he has to try and do something as well, because 30 seconds ahead of Hesjedal, Basso at 1:26. And the rest, 1:27 for Tirolongo, Cruising Girls 1:27 in general classification. It's not enough if he goes to time through like this, but where can he do it? If he's got the legs on some of these climbs, well, he's that style of rider. He's very aggressive, and he's not afraid to go on the attack. So maybe today he might be the one who could go on the attack and make the descent, because he's also a very good descender in this final 17 kilometres. He'll not be concerned about this after the Passo de Giau.
No, he won't be. I'm just wondering, he doesn't have too much of a team around him, though, in terms of climbing support. Basso, for example, has got a good team around him for climbing. They seem to be holding up pretty well. Agnoli is excellent. Schmidt, of course, is magnificent. Caruso's been great. Kopecky can climb. Bodnar does something early on. They all have a very good role to play in that train that'll lead Basso up to the top. Schmidt, of course, being the last man in line. Caruso being there or thereabouts as well, and so will Kopecky be. But when you look down at Katusha, for example, they don't have a huge amount of riders there. This is, by the way, Marcio Bruggen with Carrara. Trying to make a bit of a pace here. They've decided this is where they are going to make some sort of difference. It's interesting. Samalau is up the road. This is Carrara at the back, Bruggen at the front. Totally different descending lines into each corner, but both of them are pretty quick in going downhill. The Katusha team, Sean, it's not really built for support in the mountains. Pavel Brut, Mikhail Ignatiev, both rouleurs. Alexander Kristoff, a sprinter. Krzyzewski, another rouleur, although he can climb a little bit. Losada is the only real climber here. Because Losada and Moreno. So he's got two men. Moreno is the sort of real lieutenant. Losada, we've seen earlier, can climb a bit. Smokulis, not a climber. Vicioso, also not a climber. Sprinter.
No, they haven't a real good team to do the work. But again, in the final climb of the day, I think we're going to see the same situation with Liquigas making the pace on the earlier slopes. And if Joaquim Rodríguez is in good shape, there is, the opportunity to attack on a 9.8 kilometres, which is very steep. In that final 3-4 kilometres of that climb, if you're really good and you put in an attack, well, then you're going to put a lot of riders in difficulty. And I think Basso as well, he's going to be pitching much alone at that point, because Liquigas, they will be doing so much work, I think, earlier on. Hard to see many teammates with Basso, and you go on the attack 3-4 kilometres from the top, and you pull out an advantage, and then you do descent. Well, the teammates are not going to be a great help to Basso, because in the descent, as we know, he does his own thing in the descent. He can go at his own pace, and the teammates really want to push it on to close that 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds of a gap. Difficult, for Basso to follow in the teammates when they're really pushing it. So it is an opportunity, I think, for Rodríguez, who has to take a bit more time before the final day, which is a time trial here, which he doesn't like at all. And when you look at his palmarès in time trials, he's after losing so much time in all the big tours.
4 minutes is the gap back to the peloton, to the pink jersey. 3:50 down to Bruggen and Carrara from these 5 men. Live pictures from stage 17 here on the Giro d'Italia. A huge day in the Dolomites. The Passo Valparola is where they are descending now. These 5 breakaway men right down into the valley to Orgado, and then straight onto the Passo Duran. First category climb. This was just a second category climb, by the way, the Valparola. 30 kilometres up there. And much deeper descent. Very fast descent off this one. Then onto the Passo Duran, first category climb, straight down the other side into the bottom of the valley, and then onto the Forcella. Another second category climb, again ramps up, steep bits, less steep bits. Duran is pretty steep, right in the middle, about 5.5, nearly 6k actually of steep section right in the middle. And then onto the extraordinarily hard Passo Giau. After all this climbing all day, they've got to go all the way up the Passo Giau. 96.2 kilometres to go. We've got 5 men out ahead. It's almost inconceivable at this point, Sean. These men here, with only 4 minutes of a gap, would stay away right the way to the end. But they may stay away to something like the Forcella.
Well, I think we can see here on the front of the bunch, Hesjedal are very active, and there must be a reason for that they feel maybe that they could take another stage. Winning the stage yesterday, it's probably given everybody a big morale boost, and it looks like they want to push on. That 4 minutes, as you say, it certainly doesn't look enough at the moment, unless there's a big slowdown in the bunch, and they can put out this advantage to at least double what they've got at the moment. It's not going to happen for a 5 breakaway.
No, I don't think so. 95.5 kilometres to go. The pink jersey of leader is on the shoulders of Joaquim Rodríguez. It's a question today of who might lose the Giro d'Italia, not who might win it. You never know. As we were saying at the top of the programme, a lot of the directors sportifs seem to be saying that this is the day. Well, there's still a couple of... tomorrow is an easier day. It will be a day for Mark Cavendish and boys tomorrow. But today, very, very hard. And then come Saturday, just dreadfully difficult. 350 over 2 riders just at the head of the rest of the Maglia Rosa, in fact, group has taken 10 seconds out of the gap. Not a huge amount, but Bruggen and Carrara were descending ahead of the peloton. This is a fast one, this one, Sean, isn't it? Sweeping descent. A few switchbacks at the top, but much quicker than the other descents that we've got on the cards today.
Yes, it is a really fast one. We can see here the way the bunch is stretched out, and just one line of riders almost, and it's going at a very fast rate. And of course we see the two riders putting in an attack there, Carrara and Bruyneel, and that pushed things on a bit, and that's the reason I suppose our 5 leaders has lost a little bit of their advantage. It's 10-15 seconds, but now Hesjedal pushing on here for some reason. They feel that this breakaway, which is possible to catch, but they must have some tactic today that they want to start riding and closing it down here. And this is a problem also for the riders who haven't been able to make the summit in the bunch here. It's going to be a long road to get back, because the way the bunch is going at the moment, the groups that got left behind on the climb, they'll not get back into the main bunch, and it's going to be a long day out there in the gruppetto for them to get inside the time limit. I think there could be some riders in difficulty.
Yes, the gruppetto under real pressure today. We haven't really spoken about that yet. We've been talking about the front of the race, but at the back of the race, where the sprinters are mainly. Going to be a difficult day for Mark Cavendish, although he was setting tempo a little bit earlier, doing his bit, but eventually, over the course of today, they will drop away. And as I say, Sean, Sky, for example, have got an interesting conundrum to deal with, haven't they? Because they need a man, at least, probably Rigoberto Duran, to stay with Sergio Enyo, fellow countryman, and if Enyo gets in trouble, he's a good climber and so forth, he needs to be staying there. And then the rest of them, they need to look after Mark Cavendish, because tomorrow, another day, he could do something, gain more points for the jersey and end up in the jersey at the end. We caught up with Damiano Cunego earlier today.
Today
there are 4 mountains, GPMs, very important. Our rivals, he's talking about Scarponi as well. We'll try and increase gaps on us. We'll have to be pretty attentive. What about the Giau, he says? Well, it's tough and demanding. Before the Giau, though, we've got 3 climbs, and I think there won't be too much energy left by the end of it. I think that's a fairly fair assessment, Sean. Not much energy left by the end of today.
No, I think again it's a difficult day, as we had Cunego saying. 3 climbs before, and then the Giau, a real steep one. The percentage in that is very steep, and it's a long climb as well. So it's all about how you're feeling, how much energy you've left, and if you feel good on that one, and you're able to give an attack, well, you see very quickly, if you have a group of 20 or 30 riders in the leading end of the peloton with a lot of favourites, and you're feeling good, you can put in a big attack there halfway up the climb, or maybe a bit closer to the summit. You can see really the cracks immediately, who's that little bit near the limit and really suffering. And it will be interesting to see who of the big favourites will attack today, and they should be attacks, because it's a perfect launching pad, I think. And the Director Sportives are talking about it so much as well. They've been talking it up a lot here, and I think there's a lot of tactics in there, and any opportunity a rider sees that. Kruisinger, for example, I think if he's feeling good, well, he could also go on the attack, because he's a very good downhill as well, and he could take a bit more on that 17-kilometre downhill if he can get a little advantage on the uphill.
Yep, I was thinking the same thing actually for Kruisinger. Very briefly, whoops, good shot, sir, right onto the AG2R Le Mondial stake car there. I was just thinking, Sean, how much Kevin Silvaez has blossomed since he's been at Astana. He's in that front group again, but he's a very aggressive rider. We talked about him a lot as a young rider, and he certainly made his presence felt. There's Kevin Silvaez. Made his presence felt when he was at Quick-Step, but it sort of dropped away from him, and the move to Astana seems to have done him good, Sean. Sometimes you just need a move to a different team. It's
I think
maturing as well.
it was 2 years ago that he was really strong. I think it was in the Paris-Nice race, and he was, really impressive. And from that point, we were saying how far can he go? How good a stage rider will he be? And he went off the boil a bit, and now he's, change of team, new colours, and he seemed to be, motivated quite a lot more, and getting more aggressive in the races. And this year, I think he's certainly shown more than he has in the last year or the last 2 years.
You're right about Euskaltel here, Sean. They've got something in mind by the look of it. Some unusual that they pushed it so hard coming down the descent, and you could see that there was only a fairly small group came in together at the bottom. Best placed man on general classification is Nieve, 4 minutes plus 4 minutes back, 4:20 in fact, Nieve. And so maybe they're planning something today with Nieve. But having had a win yesterday, their tail feathers would definitely be up, that's for sure. Ivan Basso there, number 121, just taking some an energy bar by the look of it. Joaquim Rodríguez, 111 in the pink. I'm not in the slightest bit worried by that descent at all. Neither was Damiano Cunego. Going through the feed station. That's the worst thing that can happen when you pick up a musette, that it spins around and gets wrapped around your hand. And you have to spend twice as long unwrapping it again.
Well, if it doesn't get wrapped around your wheel, you're doing okay.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes see accidents where they get rid of a musette and it gets wrapped in a wheel and brings the rider down. Walk or bike, your choice. Neither, actually. It's a bit less effort being here in the commentary box than it is today, out there on the bike. You were talking about...
Here we go. The Moser.
There we go. Good flat section. This is the only flat section they've really got before they get to the Duran, just to make sure that they get enough food in their back pockets. It's okay for the escape riders, they can get handed up food, as you saw with Kevin Sildres, but the guys in the peloton will take it from the soigneurs at the side of the road. Okay, Rabotini leads our 5 men through. Serpa next, almost on the Passo Duran. We'll take a break. The beautiful sight of a Dolomite town. 86 kilometres to go on stage 17. Fantastic weather. It might have been so different if we'd had the weather of 3 or 4 days ago on today's stage. It would have been miserable and appalling. We'll talk about it when we get to the Passo Giau a little bit more, but some of you may remember back in 1992, 20 years ago, the terrible suffering of Laurent Fignon on the Passo Giau, with Dirk de Wolf with him. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later on when we get to the Giau, but it's just a massively difficult climb if you're feeling rough, Sean, isn't it? Because it's just, there's no respite at all, and it's very steep.
Yes, well, of course, it's the point of the race. 17 stage is done. Riders getting tired. A stage of 186 kilometres with 4 climbs, and the ones we had before, and we heard the riders talking about that. 3 major climbs before, and then the Giau, a real difficult one in the end. 10 kilometres, but the gradient very, very steep, and a long descent to the finish, and it's a dangerous one. Riders and teams can do something there on the climb itself, and then really do the descent full and cause a lot of problems. And it's one of the hard days of the Giro, certainly. When you look at it and you study this parcours today, it's a one where somebody could try. The Giau real launching pad at the end, and I think we will see somebody trying. Will they be good enough? That is the question. Certainly some of the riders will go on the attack, but will they be that strong on a really good day that they can really explode the big favourites and blow them apart really on the climb and get them coming over the top of the Passo de Giau if you have the favourites in different groups 15-20 seconds apart. That would be real interesting. But if a group of favourites stay together and you get one guy out in front, Pozzo Vivo for example, like Gadre, they go on the attack and they take 40 seconds. The descent, there's always riders who will make the descent then, and that is difficult on your own to do that. But if they really blow the group of big favourites apart and everybody is scattered all over the mountain, then we could see gaps between the favourites at the end of the day.
We talk a lot about how riders are waiting and we're not quite sure what the tactic will be of each team. Riders clearly get nervous on a day like today. It's a big, riders at the back of the peloton who know they might be out by the end of the day because of the time gaps, but big favourites at the front who know that they can be put under pressure. Everybody's got a weakness, and every rider will concentrate on their own weakness and think, I wonder if they know about it, I wonder if they'll exploit it, what's going to happen, what do I have to do today with my team. Those are the big favourites. What about the directors sportifs, Sean? We hardly ever talk about the moods of the directors sportifs. What happens to them? Do they feel just as nervous? Do they get just as keyed up? Well,
some directors sportifs can be a bit of a pain when it's the big day because they're so nervous, and they create that nervousness as well in the team. Then in the team briefing in the morning, they are so nervous themselves. But and depending on what sort of rider they have in the team, if he's a one that gets a little bit nervous, builds up that nervousness a couple of days or the day before going into a stage like today. But most of the riders can manage it quite well. You'll be a little anxious in the morning time, but when you get out on the road and when you have this terrain to get over before you get to the real important point of the day, the nervousness goes. You get into the event, you settle down, and then you get on with it, and it's just all about really how good you are and how strong you are in the end and how good the condition is. That is the big question. The condition the riders have got at this moment in the race, that's what it's all about today.
We have managed to catch up with Sadi Kassar at the front as well. Another man who's done pretty well so far thanks to one good breakaway. How will he fare today? Well, there's now 3 mountain stages that are decisive for the GC, he says. So for me, the goal is to keep a good position overall. Today is a really hard series of stuff. I hope to be with the best towards the finish, if that's possible. Well, I think he's been fairly realistic, Sean. He knows he can climb. He's a good all-rounder. He's not a super climber, but a very accomplished climber. Pretty good downhiller. Not, again, a super downhiller, but a pretty good one. And I think he knows he's in a position that's probably slightly better than he would expect if he hadn't attacked on one of the stages, but he's going to make the most of it while he's here.
Yes, I think he knows he's in a position which is going to be very difficult to hold on to. He's in 10th in the general classification at 2:13. It's a great place for Kassar to be in, and most of it is thanks to that breakaway, which he took a good bit of time from the other favourites. But when you look at the pointer in the race, we're into stage 17, he has to be in good shape because we've had some difficult mountaintop finishes before he got into that break, and he's still up there. But I am concerned for him today at 2:13. I would find it hard that he can stay in that position today and in the next 2 difficult days, which are Friday and Saturday. I cannot see him holding on there. And if there's a battle in this final climb today, I think he will have difficulty holding on to the 10th place in general classification.
There's a couple of other riders I think it may come under some severe pressure today if people start to put the hammer down. Dario Cataldo, he's been hanging in there 2 minutes and 12 seconds. I mean, he's been climbing really well, but frankly, Sean, I'd never have thought that he would be lying 9th overall in this Giro d'Italia at this stage.
No, he's certainly climbing exceptionally well and really putting up a great performance in this Giro. The question is, will he be good enough to hold up there in the next big mountain stages? He's in a really good position as well, like in 9th position at the moment. It's a fabulous place to be for Cataldo. He is after showing some signs that he can climb big stages with a number of mountains and get through with the big favourites or very close to them, but can he keep on doing it? That is the question, and that's where the big stars of the general classification of big tours, that's what they're good at. They can be just there every day, present. They might lose a little bit, 10-20 seconds, but never anything big time, and Cataldo is the one I'm afraid that he might take a big ticket on one of the days. And today, this very difficult steep gradient climb at the end, well, he could get in difficulty. It all depends, I think, if there's a big battle and the likes of the good climbers, Gadre, Pozzovivo, if they really start getting into action, Pozzovivo especially, if he starts going in the halfway point of the final climb of the day, well then I think there'll be a lot of riders struggling to hold on in there in the group of big favourites, and they're the ones who come to mind. Cataldo, Casar, certainly they would be. Gendt also, who was up there.
Yes,
he's at 3:16 in general classification at 12 minutes, and he is so impressive. We see him yesterday making the pace in the front of the bunch, but will he pay for that little bit of an effort yesterday? Because every moment you put your nose into the wind on the front of a group, even going uphill, you just burn that little bit of extra energy, and that all builds up as you get further into a 3-week rest.
Yep, that's Mark Cavendish has managed to hang in there on that long climb, second category climb, and of the Valparola, and descend quickly enough to stay with the Maglia Rosa group, the pink jersey group here. We've just seen him moving up through. And possibly going to do a little bit of protection work for Enyo and Roberto around at the front. He's a selfless rider, I have to say. When Mark Cavendish first came, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, stop going on about Mark Cavendish. We don't particularly like him." Fine. He happens to be the world champion and has matured brilliantly. I wasn't particularly impressed, actually, when he first came on the scene, and he's just turned into such a real ambassador for that jersey, one has to say. 4 minutes and 33 seconds, and look at this, you just could tell on the front here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sean, what is the reason? We've got Movistar up in the break. Is it something to do with that? Another team up the road, as we see sometimes with the French teams. What is the call here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 men. Surely, are they going to launch an attack on the Duran? Are they going to just want to control the pace into the last climb? What on earth is going on here?
Well, I think the director sportif is very unhappy with his riders not having a man up there in the 5-man breakaway, and it's possible that the team briefing this morning was, well, within the Hesjedal team, okay guys, we got a man into the breakaway yesterday, and you see we managed to win the stage with our rider, and today when you look at the final of this one, it's a perfect opportunity for us. So guys, I want one of you in the break. If there's 4 or 5 riders, you have to be up there. They haven't got in there in this 5-man leading group, and now the director has got on and said, okay, right, start riding guys. And sometimes you're going to lose everything here, because if you put so many men on the front of the group with the gap over 4 minutes advantage, you're going to pay for that in the end. It's difficult to see, because if you look at Hesjedal, they have 2 or 3 riders who could do well if they get into the final without having to do anything in the front end of the race. So there's a lot of work in here at the moment. We can see there's 6 or 7 riders on the front and sharing the pace, so you're going to pay for that in the end. I think it's the director has just really come down hard and say, okay guys, you've missed the break, you had your orders, you didn't do what you were told, just ride and close down this break, or get it back to a position where it will be pulled back in the end. Maybe there's rivalry as well between the 2 Spanish teams.
They're riding particularly hard though. Look at this, completely strung out in one big long line, and this is going to put some guys under pressure, using more energy than they particularly want to. Look at the way the gap has come down. 3:36 now, 35 seconds or so taken out by the riding on the front of Euskaltel. We're coming to not very far from the Passo Duran. And Duran is arguably were the second hardest climb of the day, that's for sure. Start at about 67.8 kilometres, so within about 5k of running along this valley bottom here. Still going slightly downhill. The breakaway group will head up Passo Duran. But Euskaltel Wood absolutely drilling it on the front, one big long line. And of course, Sean, that not necessarily alters, but everybody will have to bear that in mind and see there's this constant sort of evolution of tactics, isn't there? Back in the peloton, the director sportives will see that Euskaltel are on the front, they're riding hard, they'll analyse why that is. It won't take them very long in many cases to think, why are we doing this? There may be 2 or 3 options, some more serious than others, and they'll have to adjust their own tactics accordingly.
Yes, and I think it will change a lot with the break of 5 out front. The gap was starting to grow out gradually, and they probably would have maybe close to 5 minutes now, maybe 5:30 if Euskaltel hadn't started to ride, because it would have slowed down a lot here in the valley after coming through the feed zone. When we see Carrara and Bruch again pull back in, I think that was just a little test there, and it would have calmed down a lot, and this gap I think would have grown out a lot. But now Euskaltel takes it up, for what reason I don't know, but it's coming down 3:46 at the moment. And then there's a lot of teams and a lot of riders will start thinking, this is going to get more interesting now, because the breakaway is going to be pulled back to a point where it's possible to go across on the next climb. Any of the riders could on the Duran, they could make an attack and get across, because on the Duran, if you have only 2 minutes out of the breakaway, or a minute and a half, it's possible for a good climber to go across very quickly, and that makes the race much more dangerous, because if the breakaway had 6-7 minutes on the climb, well then riders would say, it's too far away, we just wait and play the waiting game and see what happens on the final climb. But now stage, I think there's a lot more riders will come into the equation and start thinking, well, this stage, if we can get out of this bunch a bit early, we could win the stage, and it's going to make it a bit more of an interesting stage, and a bit more difficult for the big favourites as well, because it's going to be more of an aggressive race.
Absolutely, it's getting pretty aggressive, and these guys will be using a lot of energy as well. Rabottini's managed to get some points for the mountains classification over the Valparola, the second category climb. For that, he accumulated 9 points extra to his total, which was this morning, wearing the blue jersey. Rabottini there with the blue shorts, leading that, 41 points. Place 34 for Michael Golas. Golas not to have been present here. That's spectacular, isn't it? That's wonderful. There's a huge amount of people out today. And in Cortina, at the finish, just the locals extremely excited at the arrival of the Giro d'Italia. This is our 5-man breakaway. They have a gap of 3 minutes and 43 seconds. How long that'll last now, we really don't know. Matteo Monteguti of AG2R. The man at the back is Rabottini of Farnese Vini, wearing the blue Mountains classification jersey. Just look for the yellow helmet there. Silderez in the turquoise and yellow of Astana, number 37 at the back. There's Monteguti coming backwards with the brown shorts of AG2R Le Mondial, and the other man is Branislav Samala of Movistar, Seppa of Androni also in the breakaway. Euskaltel all on the front. Very interesting indeed as to what might happen here. And look at the way that Liquigas have all massed around Ivan Basso towards the front. Once again, Sean Scarponi quite happy to just sit alongside the Liquigas trainers. Liquigas doing a good job for Scarponi in this year's Giro d'Italia.
Well, I think Scarponi is in just the right position, not too much to the front, because if you sit up here right behind the Euskaltel riders, for example, they are riding, and there's maybe a little bit of changing on the rear there, so the rider in front of you is moving up and the other one is coming back. If they're all riding on the front, I haven't seen if they're all going through, which I doubt very much. But if you sit in that 8th position, well, there's quite a lot of, as we see, Rabottini,
new bike.
A climbing bike.
Could be. You never know. I think it's possible, actually, Sean. It is possible that he's changed it. It's gearing change.
Yes, gearing change. I think the ratio, maybe earlier on, you get away with a different ratio, and here you need a much lower gearing, so that's the reason I think he has made the change. But we can see Scarponi, he's just sitting back there in about 15th position. You're getting good drafting, and you're being sucked along as such to a certain extent, and that's the place to be. And he's still very much in control. He can see Basso is just a place or two in front of him. So it's very important where you sit as well in the group, because if you sit right on the front, you're spending more energy to stay up there, and that's all very important on a big day like today, is such a difficult stage.
Scarponi has been sitting quite nicely. Here we go. It'll be Magic Spanner time. That's not even Magic Spanner. That is Enormous Great Shove time. Moser taking a bit of a look there. Race organizer taking a bit of a look. Looks as though Rabottini has changed for a compact 3450 chainring set by the look of it, and a 27, something like that, on the back, because Duran is pretty steep. We'll have a look at it. We'll keep that towards the end now. We were talking about Ivan Basso's Liquigas squad. Here is the man himself. Here's the first of the really high mountain stages. It's one of the toughest ones. There's not much to add. We need to go within the same attitude as every others and hope our legs are good, and that'll make the difference. Well, this might make the difference. Euskaltel, Pierre Cazot pushing along on the front. Rabottini will keep that back to the end of the stage now, Sean.
Yes, I think that's the bike for when you look at the route for the rest of the day. He will need the gearing, and the low gearing is going to be important, especially on the final climb. So it's a good way to do it. And when you're out in the breakaway, of course, it's easy to make the bike change there. We could see he was on the new bike and back in the group very, very quickly. Where if you're trying to do it in the bunch, for example, it would be much more difficult with Hesjedal pushing on so fast. It would take a big effort, to go to the rear end of the group and make a way back up again. As we can see here, Hesjedal onto the climb of Duran and really pushing it on.
Yeah, this is going to hurt some legs behind. Of the big favourites we've not mentioned so far, Ryder Hesjedal. Now he probably has the best time trial on him, Sean, Ryder Hesjedal, and lying at 30 seconds back. The question is, will he be troubled at all today?
Well, I think for him, it's the stage of the real big mountains. We heard Basso saying, well, this is the real one, the big mountains. This is the first day, and you just, you never know how good you're going to be. You're always a little bit concerned when you go to that 2,000 metres plus, and we're going to that. I think the Giau is 2.2, so it's going to be something new for all the riders, and everybody of the big favourites are going to be a little bit anxious about today's stage, because it is the day of the real big mountains.
2 minutes and 43 seconds. Euskaltel have cut the gap right down. 68.8 kilometres to go. And this is turning into something different than perhaps you would expect at the beginning of the day. It looked like the breakaway of 5 would just go away, continue going, and at some point, possibly on the penultimate climb of the Forcella Stolanza, that they might be brought back. But at the moment, it looks as if it be a completely different ball game, because whereas the favourites would have watched themselves to the final climb of the day, Euskaltel have got on the front for whatever reason is their own. They think they could do something today, or they've been given a right old telling off by the director sportif and missed the break, whatever they feel. Or maybe they just feel that now is their time after a victory of Izagirre. Who knows the real reason? But they are pushing on, and they've cut this gap right down. That will mean a completely different tactic from everybody else. They have to think about what they're going to do. So we're on stage 17 here in the Giro d'Italia, from Falses to Cortina d'Ampezzo. Finished a number of times in Cortina. Winners being riders like Ciclo Nomagni back before the war. Fausto Coppi won in 51. Louison Bobet won in 1955, so I think the last win here was in 1977. But it's full at the finish now, and very excited locals as pushing on go Euskaltel at the moment. This is Niemiec, the Polish climber, working his way back up. Unsurprisingly, looked like De Negri, who was just being passed there. Some riders will be beginning to feel this because it's a very difficult climb. We are on the Passo Duran, the second climb of the day, but it is the first one to carry the first category tag on it. 13 kilometers in length, and in the middle section, after 5 kilometers, you've got about just under 6k of very, very tough climbing. So they're on the easier bits at the moment here. After the 5k mark, you've got 5.8 kilometers of an average of 9.3%, kicking up to 14%. And then at the top it evens out a little bit, so about 3.5 kilometers of slightly flatter 5% climbing. And then of course it runs straight down the other side. Quite a technical descent to the Forcella Staulanza, which is very, very steep at the bottom. That could be somewhere where somebody takes off, because you've got that very steep section at the bottom. If somebody can really kick hard, we still don't know what the tactics exactly of Astana are here. But 2:39 is the gap. It seems to sort of evened out at that at the moment, Sean, but they're just riding their own tempo on the front, which we'll see if it just brings that gap down even more. Should do.
I think it'll definitely come down more, because if they can keep on riding with a number of the Euskaltel on the front, but we've seen 2 of them I think have peeled off already, so it depends on how long they can continue on. And I think we can see the real picture is the rear of the bunch. It's really exploding here. Riders starting to lose contact, and normal situation here, if the break was 6 or 7 minutes out, a team making pace on the front from Katusha for race leader, a lot of riders would stay in for a long way up this climb, but it's really blown the bunch to parts, and it's going to make the climb and make the day much more difficult for all the peloton here.
Big strong rulers who have some sort of climbing ability, you can see at the front from other teams. People like Alessandro Spezialezzi and Marcio Brugigin are sitting just behind Euskaltel. This is now Jose Serpa making pace on the front. Winner at Genting Highlands, a climb in itself. Huge humidity and about 42 kilometers in length in the Tour of Langkawi. We should mention, of course, his teammate today, Jose Ruhanu, Sean. He's lying way back now off the overall classification. He's at 7 minutes and 50 seconds, and I'm not surprised that yesterday his director sportive, Gianni Savio, gave him a bit of a telling to, seeing to.
Well, yes, I think we all heard that, and he was really, sounded unhappy with his rider and with his leader, and he did say on more than one occasion, he's the leader of the team, we built the team around him, so, he wasn't sparing at all, and I think what he said equaled results, and haven't been getting that, but today could be a day where you could see Rugano, the weather getting better, the cold conditions, the wet conditions, that didn't help him at all, and drier conditions here today, we could see him in the final of this one very much up in the action.
Yes, and he'll go from some way out, I think, as well. He might even go from the Forcella. But of course, if he does do that, he's still got the descent on the other side to come down, and they won't let him get too much of a distance out ahead. Christian van der Velde requiring a new rear wheel. Perfect way of doing it, just nice and calm. Stop, take the rear wheel out, don't worry about it too much. And now Liquigas taking up the charge on the front. Hey, this is turning into something, Sean, I think.
Yes, well, this is going to make it really interesting now, because they have had the last 25 plus kilometers, 30 kilometers really full on, and we get into the climb, and here we go. Liquigas are taking it up very, very early, and again, it's such a familiar sight we've seen in this race. They just want to, work everybody down slowly, just wear them down, and so far it's working out quite well for Basso, because in the general classification he's in a good position, and they're going to just try to do that again from a long way out, make the pace quite high, and again it will probably stop the other guys from going in the attack, like if the Pozovivas, the other great climbers, Gadre for example. But so early I did not expect them to do it, because I thought they would wait until the penultimate climb of the day, or the final climb of the day.
Just setting pace at the moment. Danilo Vies and Nimec. I'm surprised Nimec is suffering here at the back for Lampre. We've talked about Romain Kreuziger. We managed to catch up with his teammate Paolo Tiralongo today.
Sì, siamo in due nei primi 5 in
With his two of
classifica.
us, with
È arrivato il
Kreuziger
momento
and
di
myself in
scoprirsi
the top
che
5.
è inutile stare lì.
The time has come
lottare,
to
dobbiamo
unveil our
lottare
strengths,
per
he
la
says.
vittoria o perlomeno per un podio.
We have to fight for victory.
Siamo in
We
due.
have to
Ognuno deve giocarsi le sue carte.
play our own cards.
Oggi ho avuto via libera. Se le
I've got the green light from the team.
sono
My
quelle
legs
che
are the same as the ones of
che
the
fino a
last
oggi
days
ho
today.
avuto.
I won't wait for anybody.
Sicuramente non so lì aspettare
That's interesting.
nessuno.
And I'm not a rider
sono il
who's
tipo che ha
afraid
paura
to
d'attaccare.
attack.
Tanto non ho niente da perdere. Il mio giro per
I've got
adesso
nothing
è
to lose.
stato positivo per me,
My
veramente sono
Giro is
contento.
very positive, and from
Da oggi proverò
from today,
a muovermi, ecco.
Grazie
I'm
mille
going to
Paolo.
make a move. Ooh. Do I detect dissent in the camp, Sean? That sounds very much like he's saying I'm not going to wait for anyone, including Kreuziger.
Well, I think he just I hope he's giving us the true story, the true tactic of the team, or is it just
Or is it just a bit
to
of
bluff
blind?
a bit and just to make other riders and other teams nervous? Because sometimes there's a lot of that go on as well. But Tiralongo is in a position, and he's riding so well in this race. He's just ahead of his teammate Kreuziger at 1:26 in the general, and it's normal that we'll play the two cars, because when you look at Kreuziger, he hasn't been shown any magnificent flashes at all. Where Tiralongo, he's won a stage, and he's been up there, and why not play the two cars for the moment? You have to do it, and if you get into a situation on the final climb of the day where there's a group of favourites and Tiralongo is there, if he's capable of going in the attack, if Kreuziger is feeling okay, well then it puts the other big favourites under pressure and put them in a position they have to do the chasing, and that it's a good tactic, and it's a great way to have two riders so close in the general classification in 4th and 5th position at this moment.
Yep, it could be the bluff, of course, as you say. It could just be saying we've got two guys, I'm not going to wait for anybody, I'm going to do my own thing. And of course, if other directors sportifs see that, as they will do, other riders detect that, it could be a deliberate ploy to just sow some seeds of doubt in other people's minds. But it could genuinely be that they might have sat down and had an amicable or not so amicable discussion about who is team leader now.
Well, yes, it's very
happens.
It's very possible that Tiralongo, he's always been domestique all his career until last year when he won his first stage in the Giro, and he's changed a lot. We've seen him this year. He's been much more aggressive, much more in the final of races in the earlier part of this year. And maybe he is in the team briefing said, well, I want to do my general classification in this race. I feel I could do something as well. And the director sportif, of course, with Roman Kreuziger, you have to say, well, the way he's riding at the moment, we cannot sacrifice him earlier on in the race. Certainly, we have to see as the days go on, and let's just get today's stage through stage 17, which is the real test, the real stage of big mountains, and then we will make a decision after that. But if the two men are still up there, why not play the two cars?
Interesting, we shall see. Possible bluff, possible just honest opinion from Paolo Tiralongo. Maybe his team doesn't even realise that. Maybe that's just how he feels. And it's natural, of course, if you feel yourself in a position where you could possibly achieve something. Especially a man who weighs... It's remarkable, though. Would you ever thought, Sean, that we've seen Paolo Tiralongo for years and years and years being mainly a climbing domestique for people, but they use him in all sorts of ways. He moved to Astana. He's taken his first stage victory only last year in a 12-year career. First professional victory. And now he's talking about challenging for the Giro d'Italia overall title a year later.
Yes, and we've seen the way he's performed in the past years, and I think when Contador was with Astana in the Tour of France 2 years ago, he was very impressive in the Pyrenees. He did some riding on the front of the bunch. It was exceptional stuff, and he wasn't just a pure domestique on the mountain stages, especially. That's where his forte point is, and winning a stage last year, I think, changed his way of thinking, and it looks like now that he's going to try and go for a general classification, unless we get into a situation where Kruisinger is in a real good position and they have to sacrifice him maybe in the final mountain stage on Saturday. That could happen, but at the moment I think he's just allowed to play equal card with Kruisinger.
Interesting. Well, maybe they just said amicably, maybe they sat down and said, guys, you're both pretty equal. Paolo, you've had one really good day and won a stage, and Roman, you've not been quite so good there. Roman, you were really good on one day, and Paolo is behind you on the other day. Guys, just fight it out amongst yourselves. The best legs will win. 65 kilometres to go. 2 minutes only is now the gap, and this is really turning into something quite interesting. Didn't expect it to be pushing on quite so much, quite so early, and riders like Pavel Brut here, the Russian champion, are really going to suffer here. These are the rulers, the guys who keep their team leaders up towards the front on the flat, but in these sort of climbs it's a bit difficult. Such a long day, the tempo being set by Liquigas at the front, not exceptionally fast, but there are riders, 1s, 2s, 3s dropping off the front. We're going to get lots of little groups appearing already, and I'm not certain, Sean, that by the time we get to the Forcella, the third climb of the day, there won't be only, 50 riders left? 50, 55?
If that's the way we're going about it at the moment, and if we don't have some attacks here on this climb with Liquigas, just pushing on the front, but if there's some of the riders who go in the attack, the real good climbers, well then we'll have less than 50 riders, I reckon. The gap, 2 minutes at the moment, it is coming down, and we can see just the peloton. There's riders just scattered all over this mountain already, and they would be expecting 40-50k back to the road. We would have been saying, well, this climb, when we get onto it in the group, it'll be a steady pace and we should be able to hang on for quite a long time, but it's not the case, and just riders everywhere, as we can see, just in ones all over the mountain.
Yeah, and scattered all over the place. Gosh, is that a real face? And Yoli is giving him a little squirt of water there. This is our breakaway group. Somebody writing in, who was it? Let's have a look.
Four.
Darth.
Down to 4 men in the breakaway. We'll
4
see.
men.
Monteguti has just contact.
Disappeared, yep, from it. Matteo Monteguti. Darth on Twit. Oh, I see. Darth on Twitter. You're not a twit. Okay, Darth on Twit. Writing in saying, how come a rider's allowed to swap bikes? Isn't that a bit unfair? It's always been done. It's nothing new. And you can do it in both ways round, by the way. Riders in the past have swapped bikes for lighter. Now there's a 6.8 kilo limit, minimum limit, weight limit for bikes. So you can't go down in terms of weight, but you can change the distribution of that weight. You can have lighter wheels, for example, if you want to climb on them. And they accelerate, they roll easier. And you can have different gearing. There's no problem with that at all. But in years gone past, riders would take heavier bikes to descend on. It's always happened right the way through the history of bike racing. Certain bike racers, certain small riders used to take bikes at the top of a climb with lead-filled water bottles in them, so they could descend quicker because their bikes weighed more. So there you go. It's nothing new. And of course, if they get into any difficulties, that's what they carry spare bikes for, so they can do things with them. Wheels SCW. By the way, if you want to join us, is at Spokesmen, SPOKESMEN, saying, who's the best place Euskaltel rider? Who better they be riding for? We don't think they were now, by the look of it. It's possibly, as Sean was trying to explain, that, Nieve is up there, but he's the best placed man at 4:20. We did mention him, we did talk about him. But it could well have been the fact that they'd missed the break and there was a bit of like, get that break back within some sort of catching distance. Then we'll think about what we can do for Nieve a bit later on. I'm not surprised Albertini's suffering here, Sean. He had a long old day in the saddle. His dad rode 9 Giri and won a stage in Tirreno Adriatico. I'm not surprised he's suffering here, though, Sean. That was a long old day in the saddle, and even with a day off and a day's easy riding, you must take it out your legs.
Yes, well, it takes a couple of days to recover from the performance he put in 3 days ago. But again, he is doing okay here, and the important thing is he's picking up some very valuable points for the mountain classification. Unfortunately for him, that Esquetel started to ride. This gap, would have been at least 5 minutes at the moment, and then they would have went on a long ways into the stage, and he would have picked up quite a bit more for the overall classification of mountain classement. But he's going to get over this climb, I would reckon, if there's not a big attack from some of the ones in the peloton. If the Liquigas is allowed to just continue on making the pace setting on the front. But I think everybody else up there in the breakaway as well is starting to suffer, and maybe he's just putting on a bit of a face and putting on a bit of a show.
Maybe he is. Roman Kreuziger, number 41 there for Astana. Number 31. Number 33, Paolo Terralongo, just sitting behind him. Saw him just now talking to us on Eurosport, saying today's the day. We do what we want today. Well, I'm surprised there's been so much. There's Albertini. I'm surprised there's been so much attacking talk, Sean, from riders and clearly from director sportives. As we said, we've still got 2 huge days to come on Friday and Saturday.
Yes, it was a surprise to see so many people talking. The riders and director sportives were talking, about a very aggressive race in that lines, and we will see in the end will they walk the walk and not only just talk the talk today. It will be interesting, but it is a stage, I think, where the opportunities are huge for a lot of different style of riders, and we should see on the final climb of the day, we have to see some action, certainly.
1:56 is now the gap. 63.5 kilometres to go. Massive day of mountain climbing. Surprising how aggressive it's now become on only the second climb out of 4. Passo Duran, one of the harder climbs here. It's a really evil section in the middle, just under 6 kilometres of climbing at over 9%, nearer 10%, and Jose Serpa is just setting the pace at the front. Dario Cataldo still climbing with the best next to Michael Nieve there. Nieve in the orange of Euskaltel, Cataldo in the Quick Step, Omega Pharma Quick Step colours. And Johan Chop for BMC still up towards the front here. Sean, another rider who's been doing exceptionally well. He's a good, steady rider who's been improving over the years. He's in the BMC colours of red and black here in the front group of riders. But will he have one bad day in the mountains? This is the thing.
That is the question, and I think that's the worry he's having himself. Something new for him as well, maybe to be in a big 3-week tour, to be in that position, in top 50 and under 3.5 minutes down, and it's a great performance for him so far. But will he be able to survive the real difficult days to come?
Well, the big pace of the Liquigas boys is putting some riders really under pressure. Nimetz we saw disappearing out of the back door. Jose Rojano also in trouble. And Rojano 7 minutes and 50 seconds back, being castigated by Gianni Savio yesterday, live on Eurosport, saying basically, we're not happy, you've done nothing, we built the team around you, we pay you a load of cash, and you're rubbish. That's basically what he was saying. Get on with it. We've given you the keys to the car, now drive it. That's what essentially he said. Matteo Monteguti from out of the break of 5. For those of you who are just joining us, Under 63 kilometres to go till the end, but it's all climb or descent. There's no flat at all now to the end. They're on the Passo Duran, followed by the Forcella Staulanza, and then they run down to the bottom of the Passo Giau, starting at Ponte, Cordolonga, and straight onto the Passo Giau. 9.8 kilometres, horrible climb, with a maximum of 14% towards the start and about 10% or over 10% in the middle. Just a little bit easier towards the top, but not much. So the men remaining in the break, Rabottini in the all blue there, the mountains classification leader, riding for Farnese Vini. Silvereas at the front here, setting the pace. And behind him, Branislav Samalau of Movistar with the green helmet, the blue, and Jose Serpa, the Colombian rider, just sitting there in the white helmet for Androni. Here we go. Armets Cheruka and Nieve for Euskaltel. Well, maybe that was the plan then, Sean. Now they've taken that time back enough. You can get 2 men over to the break and maybe ride over the top of it and keep going.
Well, yes, there's certainly the tactic was in there, and here was, the two from Euskaltel are going to try and ride across, but still 1 minute 40. It's a big advantage, and we can see here that just starting to break up, and I reckon it's a little bit too early to start this. When you have Liquigas making a good pace, you can wait for a moment, and they still have a good 5 kilometres, 5.5 kilometres to get to the top of this one. And the way Liquigas are pushing on there, and the advantage out in front as well, 130 at the moment. Surprising to see them, going at this moment, but they definitely, had a tactic, and they're really being pushed by their team and by their director sportif.
1:32 is the gap. N. Fernandez saying the reason today invites attacking is because tomorrow is effectively a rest day for the GC riders. Well, it's certainly a day for the sprinters, if there's any of them make it through the time card today, which they should do, but I wouldn't call it a rest day. They're going to be still going pretty quick. The thing is, yesterday was your effective half a rest day. Nieve on the attack now, trying to get out of the peloton. 4 minutes and 20 seconds down he was this morning, Sean. At what point will they register this man as being a little bit dangerous?
Well, I think if he gets 4 minutes of advantage, then he'd be dangerous, because at the moment
stating the obvious,
he's a bit in no man's land. 1.5 minutes across to our 4 leaders, and Liquigas, making a very strong pace on the front of the bunch. So to pull out 4 minutes in an advantage here from that group, the front end of the peloton, you would need to be on a super day. You'd want to have the super legs, and I'm very doubtful. And surprising that his neighbour is the one, because he's there in the general classification at 4:20. That's a real good position. I thought some of the other riders from Euskaltel would be catapulted up the road, but he's going to have very possible, pay for this effort later on. If he continues on and gets himself into the situation where he's in between the breakaway and the bunch for a long time, well, you will pay for that at the end of the day, unless he's on one of these dream days which you get maybe once or twice in your career.
Well, he's had wins before, but they've always been a mountaintop finish. He's still got a long way to go here, Mikael Nieve. I wonder what the talk was around breakfast this morning, and if the director sportif came and tapped on the room this morning as he was getting ready and say, how do you feel today, Mikael? Let's make the move today. Is it possible they've been waiting all this time? This is looking back at Armets Cheruka, taking him away from the peloton. Didn't last very long though, Cheruka there. Just gave it everything and lasted about 300 metres, I think. There he goes. Nice to see a couple of bikers at the side of the road. A Thundercat and a BMW by the look of it. Agnoli's been doing some sterling work on the front here, Sean. Once again, tapping away, and I think there's a little bit of urgency in his... Gadre. This is Gadre at the back of the group here, and clearly, what's that, a pair of scissors? What's he cutting open? Cutting his sleeves off, I think. Very possible. He's doing something to his jersey anyway. Can't hang about, it can't stop. What on earth is he doing? He's cutting something open.
His undershirt seems to be
Possibly.
cutting it open.
Well, maybe he's cutting it open so he can just drag it off. I think that's probably the idea. Clearly getting hot. But there's no way of taking it off like we saw the other day with Bernie Eisel. "30 seconds is the gap between Nieve and the peloton now, just under. Rabottini will be happy he gets over the top of this one first, Sean. He'll keep going, keep trying, but the way he's looking a little bit under pressure. I'm not sure he'd make it to the top of the third one as the first rider.
Well, if we could go on looks, it's looking not good at the moment. But again, you know, he seemed to be throwing different faces than he was the other day. He seemed to be suffering a bit more and grimacing a lot. So yes, possibly that's the big effort the other day. Still some of that in the legs, and I'm not surprised because that was a marathon ride, and in the bad conditions it could take 4 or 5 days to recover from an effort like that.
Yes, nasty, nasty, nasty. We're on the Passo Duran. And the middle section of the climb is the nastiest, and I think we're just about coming to the top of the section, which is over 9%. Just evens out a little bit to about 5%, and I think Rabottini will be very pleased about that. Agnoli looks like he's suffering a little bit here on the front now. Nieve has 58 seconds. This is looking a little bit more difficult. And Liquigas once again have taken up the pacemaking on the front. Day after day after day, Sean. It's not just on the mountain, it's in the flat. They're just controlling pace all the time. It's almost as if people like Scarponi, for example, they don't need a team. They just sit on the back of Basso.
Well, it's just amazing, the Liquigas team, the amount of kilometres they've put in on the front. And as you say, not only in the mountain stages, on the flat stages as well, they were doing a lot of work for Basso to keep him out of danger. The earlier days when we started up in Denmark, they were shepherding him around with 3, 4, 5 riders all the time. And then the stages were back in Italy, the flat stages on the run in, where there was little hills at the finish, which was always a bit nervous. And you know, they've been just on the front for so long and done so many kilometres.
Yeah, extraordinary, man. Savio at the side of the road. I'm not sure how much Agnoli's going to have left for the next climb of the day, because he's just plugging away at this one, bringing back the gap a little bit to Mikael Nieve, the Euskaltel rider. Here he is. Always been with Euskaltel in his career. This is his 4th or 5th year as a professional with Euskaltel. Won over stage in the Giro last year, remember. Up to Gardeccia, Val de Fassa. It was a mountaintop finish then, and he rode away from everybody. And it was really his breakthrough win, Sean, that one, last year in the Giro d'Italia. But this is a different league, this one. He's still got 2 big mountains to come after this if he's intent on getting away, and I don't think he's going to be, because Euskaltel's man for the GC is being pegged back by Liquigas, and an extraordinary bit of pace setting by Valerio Agnoli here.
Yes, it is an interesting tactic. I don't really understand Euskaltel and more so Nieve, why he's going in the attack at this point when, you know, you have a team like Liquigas setting the pace. It's just going to take so much of an effort to get an advantage and to get across the breakaway. If he does get into the breakaway of 4 riders, still we have 60 kilometres to go. And the way the race is working out at the moment, it's in that aggressive racing, and I think there's going to be probably more attacks. And when you're there 4:20 in general classification as well, they're not going to allow them to ride away that easy. Where some of the other riders within the Hesjedal, a long ways down, there's a lot of them, 45 minutes down, 27 minutes down. They're the riders I thought we would see trying to do something here, but it's an interesting tactic, and it's going to make the race, I think, continue on to be aggressive all the way to the finish now.
Nieve with 42 seconds of advantage over the Liquigas-led peloton. Somebody writing in on, who are they? Pricey. 88 writing in at ad spokesman saying Liquigas are forcing the pace this early, expecting a Basso attack on the final climb to minimise losses on the descent. Well, it may well have been something. There's Nieve. Just looking back at, he was waiting for Chiruka, I think, to come up at this point. Come on, let's get ready, let's go. There we are. Launching the attack with Ahmed Chiruka at the head there. He didn't spend too long at the front there. There's clearly suffering a little bit, but giving him his team leader a little bit of a springboard. Nothing left there. And 36 seconds is now the gap. It may well have been the case, Pricey, that Liquigas might have set a pace to keep Basso up towards the front and then possibly up the pace on the final climb of the day, but that is not the way it's worked out now, because Euskaltel have taken the race on board and it's forcing Liquigas to respond. This is not a planned effort in the same way as they would have done if Basso was ready to attack on the final climb. This is a response to other people doing things, and it puts everybody under pressure, this, Sean. You can see Ryder Hesjedal there by himself. Rodríguez by himself. Just behind him is Kroenego. Rodríguez in the pink and blue of Kroenego. Cataldo's near that. And at the moment, it seems to be working for Liquigas to be able to chop down that attack by Michael Nieve. But they could well do without this sort of stuff, couldn't they, really?
Yes, well, I'm not sure if Nieve did not go in the attack, would Liquigas not be on the front anyway here, because...
would they be riding in this pace?
Well, that is the question, and Basso and Liquigas, I think what they really want to do, and what they've been trying to do for the days in the mountains, especially when they put the team on the front, is just to keep the pace high for Basso first of all, because he likes a real strong pace and no sudden changes, no acceleration of the pace in the bunch. And it's also to use the riders, work them over a long time. And Rodríguez probably is the one that doesn't like having a hard racing all day. He doesn't support that well, where Basso thinks, or he knows maybe, that yes, that's the way I can do it. I can just make the race so hard earlier on today that everybody else will be so tired in the end they'll not be able to attack me, and maybe they'll be so tired that I can attack them. And that's the way Basso, his style of racing, has always been.
Yes, another guy who can do that. Hesjedal seems to be the sort of guy who can just ride and ride and ride here. But Albertini on the front, who will want to take the mountains classification points here. I'm not sure the others will fight him particularly. They might do. But he's got into this breakaway. He's in the blue jersey of mountains classification leader. And where are they? There. And Albertini has a little bit of an advantage over the others now. Looking behind to see if anybody's coming with him. He wants to ride away towards the top of the GPM. He's done a good job today, and it is a job. This is what cycling is about on Grand Tours. There's a race within a race, competitions within competitions. It's one of the most fascinating and exciting sports in the world. Here we're looking at a man racking up points in the mountains classification. Now, unlike in years gone past, Sean, the mountains classification here in the Giro d'Italia this year has been about riding in the mountains, as opposed to just picking up lots of points on the way.
Yes, not too sure on that now, but yes, you'd have to look back to the records, I suppose. But in the big tours, we have seen, especially the Tour de France, I suppose, if you're talking on that, that's where a lot of the times where the breakaways, they seem to pick up a lot of points and hold on. But again, I think if you look at the mountain classification winners in the Tour of in the Giro here, I think there'll be quite a number of points picked up from getting away in breaks also.
I guess so, but I was thinking of riders like Fabian Wegmann, of course, who took the mountains classification in the Giro d'Italia a number of years ago, and really he racked that up in the same way as some other riders racked things up in the Tour de France, as you say, by early on just accumulating points over the lower hills and so forth, fourth categories, third categories, a couple of seconds, then going out on one big day and taking as many points as they could until they sort of fell off the bike, basically. But this year, Rabottini has had to take it because we've got a Giro that's packed in the final week with big mountains and big mountain stages. Rabottini has been forced to take it in those circumstances, and he's doing a good job.
Yes, he's doing a good job, and I suppose in the last years of the Tour of Italy, certainly last year with the stages being so difficult, it's such a difficult Giro, it suits the real climbers so well, and sometimes it's the guys who are in the general classification that they end up taking the mountain classification at the end, because they're up there in the front of the race and they go over the climbs in a good position and just pick up points, and maybe really not going for it in the earlier part of the mountain stages. So it depends on how difficult the race is, and of course last year was majorly difficult, and it was just so much climbing and so much difficult days.
Over the top of the Passo Duran go the breakaway riders, the remaining riders, and the peloton. This is a little bit more technical than the last one, and we shall see just if Liquigas can control it on the way down as well. Looking like they are. 35 seconds up the road from the peloton is Mikel Nieve. Valerio Agnoli doing a fabulously good job in cutting down a gap that was almost a minute, down to just over half a minute. Nieve starting the day at 4 minutes and 20 seconds down on the GC. Rabottini then takes 15 more points for the mountains classification. Good on him. Today he's amassed 24 to add to the total of 41 he had this morning, so he's pulling out a significant lead in the mountains classification. Mikhail Gorosh still lies second. This is Nieve. And Rabottini on the left-hand side just taking a bit of a break here, I think, Sean, just not going absolutely hell for leather down this descent, but he looks a little uncomfortable on the bike as well, and it's not really his style either. Sildrez, on the other hand, does like to push it on a bit. 25 seconds to Nieve. That's interesting. We've cut down another 10 seconds on the descent alone. Just maybe it illustrates what we were talking about a little earlier, that Liquigas are actually extremely good descenders. Well, Nieve's not bad. He shouldn't be being pegged back too much. Liquigas as a team are extremely good descenders, and sometimes it's Basso who's the slower one that forces them to hang back a little bit. If you had Nibali as team leader here, they just go absolutely flying down here. Nieve is cutting the gap to the riders in front as well. And there we go. Everything's coming back together a little bit here, Sean. A few seconds here, a few seconds there. It's not absolutely close together yet, but it is being just chopped down.
Yes, well, it is. It's all closing down a little bit. Nieve is closing on the four leaders, and the bunch is, pegging back on Nieve a bit, I reckon. But we'll have to wait a little bit more, I think, on the descent to see will the Liquigas push on. They're certainly not really going that hard on in the descent, but Nieve at 19 seconds and 57 back to the group of pink jersey race leader it's nothing at the moment, as we can see. Somebody sliding off here.
That looks like
Larson.
Larsson. Christopher Larsson, Swedish national time trial champion. And just overcooking it on the bend here, is he? Oops. Lucky boy. In many ways. Lucky that his bike remained at that point, otherwise he'd been sliding underneath that barrier.
The bike is well parked.
Yes, absolutely, well parked. Provided a nice fence.
Only the wrong way around.
Look at this. 53 kilometres to go. 1, 2, 3, 4 riders from Liquigas up the front, and it would be Scarponi, I think. Just behind. As Nieve closes down on Samalau by the look of it. The breakaway in front. Selderez not sparing the horses. Well, the breakaway is effectively over now, Sean. It's all broken up into bits now, and Selderez all by himself.
Yes, well, it's pretty much over with that. The advantage so little under the minute to the breakaway, and they've also broken their set up because Selderez have pushed on here and scattered everybody all over the descent. So it's the important thing is the time advantage now has come down so much. It's not going to happen for the breakaway, and they're just all out individually on the descent here.
Yep, Nieve is closing down now on Kevin Selderez, who's the man at the front of this race. Well, such an odd moving game of chess cycling that if Nieve was to catch Selderez on the next climb, he's still a danger man in the overall classification, and therefore riders like Liquigas and Lampre would start closing up that gap on Nieve, and they can, as soon as they can, keep him under control. But of course that brings Kreisinger and Tirolongo closer to the front of the race as well. So it swings and roundabouts. We're almost within inside the last 50 kilometres. And Sean, is it too early to expect a big attack on the Forcella?
Well, with the way the race has been going for a long time, it's been a very difficult stage. First of all, we had 4 big mountains to get up, but the way they've raced as well, from the time we got over the first climb of the day, they have really pushed it on, and I think a lot of riders will be suffering because of that, because it has been very energy sapping racing, and that might limit the attacks from some of the riders. And of course Liquigas and Basso, that's what they are trying to do. I think the likes of Pozzovivo, for example, who if he gets an easier ride during the day, well then the final climb he will definitely attack you. But if you really put the pressure on over 3-4 hours of time over many kilometres, then he might get to the final climb and you could have a lot of the power knocked out of him, and that is definitely the tactic of Liquigas.
Here's Nieve. Taking a pretty wide line on that, wait for it. Nicely done, sir. Selderez goes under the 50 kilometre to go mark here on stage 17 here. Huge stage to Cortina d'Ampezzo. And Selderez out by himself. The question is, of course, if he's still up the road when the peloton arrive on the next climb. They have the advantage, Astana, if they want to send Kreisinger or Tirolongo up the slopes to attack. I'm not sure they will, but if they do, then they have Selderez there ahead. Just to give that extra little bit of effort if he has anything at all. Nieve almost on the back of Rabottini, Serpa and Samalau now. I thought he caught Samalau, to be honest, but Samalau had out-descended him. You're back live with us here Under 15 kilometers to go, and it's all nasty climbing and descent now for Kevin Sildrez of Astana, the Belgian 14th position best here in the Giro d'Italia. 1 minute and 53 back to the pink jersey, the peloton being led by Liquigas once again. 36 seconds back from Sildrez and two of his former breakaway companions, because Rabottini was suffering, because now we're back onto climbing again. He's dropped off the back. Jose Serpa and Branislav Samala are still in this group, and Mikel Nieve, who came out from the front of the peloton, has now got a minute here, Sean, on the peloton. So actually he's in that descent, he's pulled out quite a bit of time, or the last bit of it anyway. He seemed to be shut down by a bit, and then he's come back again.
Yes, he's after doing a good descent and continuing on here, and we can see the advantage is working quite well, but still a long ways to go.
Joaquim Rodríguez. Today's high mountain stage. I hope I've got the same feelings as I had. Are you more confident after Flèche Wallonne? Yeah. I have more faith in myself. I'm much more confident. It's a great year for me. I've won, I think he said 5 races so far this year. So I'll tell you what, though, it's one thing talking about victory in Flèche Wallonne, another thing about saying a victory in the Giro d'Italia, Sean. It's a bit different.
Yes, certainly different, but you know, the form with Rodríguez has been really good in the last weeks, and in this Giro he has had exceptional form, and will that continue on? That is the question as well. You know, sometimes when you're really good in the beginning of a 3-week tour, the final days it can start, you know, to catch up on you, and we will see with Rodríguez in the next number of days. But he has the morale, certainly, with the performance he's had in the earlier part of the season, the way he's riding in this Giro in pink at the moment, the team so supportive around him. You know, everything is good. The only question is now, has he got the shape good enough to hold on here? And he needs to take also some more time from the other big favourites, because the time trial, we know that Rodríguez, that is always a big problem for him. He loses a lot of time against the men. He's breathing down his neck in the general classification.
Yep. Well, Sildrez is still up the road, but the gap is coming down a little bit, with Nieve driving on the 2 men behind. This is the mountains classification leader, Rabottini. He's taken points, maximum points on the first 2 climbs of the day, and he's going to suffer on his way up now, that's for sure. We're coming up very quickly behind him, Sean. Look, 17 seconds or so, and it is Nieve doing the charge here, and riding up very strongly to Sildrez. He's cut the gap down pretty quick here. Maybe we'll just keep him in sight now for a bit. But with under 50 kilometers to go, the gap is effectively still a minute over the peloton. And I think if they can keep it at a minute, they'll be happy with it. But if the gap starts to grow out to 1.5, 2 minutes, a little bit more, Sean, with Mikel Nieve in this group, then they will begin to get worried.
Yes, well, I think Nieve is, you know, he's on a mission today. He's going for there. We can see the way he's riding, and Sildrez also up front is giving it. He's giving it a lot at the moment, and still, you know, at 47 kilometers plus to the finish, it's a big ask. As we can see here on the front of the bunch, Liquigas continuing on, and that group of 40 riders we can see there with all the big favourites. Like, there's a lot of men in there who are fresh, who hasn't done anything today, and it's going to make such a difference when you get to the final of such a difficult stage, that when they go in the attack, even if Nieve take 2 minutes on that final climb, will he be able to continue on at this rate? Because it's a big demand for a rider who is really a climber. He's not a one who can ride out in front for almost 50 kilometres and still keep going in the end. I'm afraid that this effort, it's far too far from the finish for him, and the way things are working behind, I'd not like it from Nieve that the place in the general classification at 4 minutes and 20. he's a danger man. That is the problem. He's not going to be allowed to just ride off. Where for the rider who is at 30 minutes down, you might get the bunch to slow down and start going a bit slow for a period.
Valerio Agnoli has peeled off the front, having done a long turn, trying to peg things back. It's Damiano Caruso, former best young rider here in the Giro d'Italia. In this Giro d'Italia, he's worn the jersey, should I say. He's not won the classification. And Agnoli going back to the car, needing something to drink. I'm not at all surprised. It's been an awful lot of work. Moreno down the back here, looking a little bit uncomfortable. Might be a bit worried about the pace of Selderez as well, whether he can continue in this sort of way. He's a very strong rider, very gutsy, brutish rider, and a good climber. But whether he can stay at this sort of pace, I don't know. We haven't talked about the other two men here, Sean, very much. Samalau, I think, is on a good day, and he is an extremely strong rider, but not necessarily a great climber. If the pressure starts really going on, he might suffer a little bit. What about the chances of Serpa? We've seen very little of him. He's just sitting in there. He looks comfortable, but maybe that's just his style. Yes,
well, he is a real good climber, a small lightweight rider, and he's in his the best area here in the mountains. That's where he can put up a performance. Unfortunately for Serpa, for example, this breakaway, if it had been left as it was and it got 10 minutes, well, then he would be a one who could, really do well in the final climb, go in the attack and maybe take another advantage to go on and have a chance for stage victory. But the way things have worked with Hesjedal and Neve going in the attack, it's just kept the race alight behind all the time, and the advantage for the breakaway never grew out enough then. And I think they would be disappointed in that, especially Serpa. He would have a good chance of doing something in the end. Selderez, as we see as well, riding quite well. Samalu also, when he's up there, with the riders he was in the breakaway, he could probably match them on his good day. But now a new man coming up, Neve, who is probably that bit better on a climber, and maybe going to put some of those guys in difficulty.
Yes, I think he possibly is. Samalu requiring the car. Looks like there's a lot of hard work going in today. Selderez, he has that sort of look, Sean. He never looks as though he's really suffering, but he'll just go pop at the moment. And a big gear turning over by Serpa. Just sits in the saddle and climbs that way for a long time, but it does, and good style, sits there a lot, but it does betray on his face when he starts to have real problems here. And Liquigas still having to control this peloton on the front here. Look how strung out it is. All the big names still in there. Dario Cataldo up towards the front. Still going well. I'm very surprised. 1 minute exactly is the gap between the peloton and Nieve. Question is, which of these riders will start to just drop off the back on this climb now? The third climb of the day, the Forcella Staulanza. And here we are, looking at the face of Ivan Basso, his team working on the front with Caruso clearly on the road to suffering here. Capecchi and then Basso. Interesting to see that still up towards the front is Diego Ulissi, just sitting behind Damiano Cunego. They might use him a little later on, Lamprey. A few riders drifting towards the front, Sean, who are clearly there to help other men, like Diego Ulissi. 1 minute and 1 second is the gap, 45.5 kilometers to go. Oh, it's a tough old day today. In the face of our pink jersey wearer, the Maglia Rosa, on the shoulders of Joaquim Rodríguez, the black on his arm, by the way. And you'll see some black armbands as well. And amongst the Spanish riders. It's the anniversary of the death of Javier Tondo today. And that's why some of those guys are wearing black bands. Some of the Euskaltel riders were doing so. I think Saint-Malar's beginning to suffer here, Sean. Weaving a little bit.
Yes, and it looked like that a kilometre or two further down the climb here. He seemed to be looking around, looking for some fresh drink, and no team car there at the moment, because with the advantage, like down to 58 seconds, the team car doesn't seem to be left in between here. I don't know. In the earlier part, we did see on the climb, of course, that's when they were pulled over by the commissar. When it comes down to a certain point, certainly under the minutes, they're not allowed in between, and he seemed to be suffering already there. And as you say, there seemed to be a lot of movement on the bike.
Daniel Gendt. There's Sergio Enyo on the left-hand side of your shot in the white jersey of best young rider. The undervest of Jean Gadret gone, being cut from his torso by his very own fair hand. This is the 4 men up ahead, 105. It's been driven on by Mikel Nieves. Nobody's going to help him. He's the one who's come up there. At this moment, anyway, nobody's going to help him. He's the one who's come up there. It's his job to push on. It's not going out enough as they come up towards the 45 kilometre to go banner for Nieve to be causing too many problems at the moment. It's certainly in too many panic situations, but I think he's putting a lot of people under pressure as Liquigas keep it under control, Sean. And it's a hot day in the saddle today. A lot of riders displaying a little bit of discomfort.
Well, of course, when you start climbing and the longer climbs, when the temperature, is pretty good, you can heat up a lot, and it does get uncomfortable. And in the climbs, that's always the case. And we can see there's, a lot of the riders looking very warm at the moment. And I'm not surprised the way they have been going for a long time. And here in the bunch, as they are out in front, they're pushing on big time, still with 44 kilometres to go. It's going to be a very, very tiring day for a lot of riders. And, this climb, it's an energy-sapping one, but the final climb of the day, that's the one I think where it will really hit a lot of riders, and pain will be a big, big thing for a lot of them. They will suffer big time.
Won't they just? This is the intermediate sprint that nobody is bothered about whatsoever, as they're on the lower slopes of the Forcella Starlanza second category climb today. Total length of 12.3 kilometres. The first 2 or 3 K here are very nasty indeed. It evens out a little bit and then gets stiff again towards the end. 6.5 kilometres into it, so we've got about 5.8 kilometres of over 7%. It's really going to start playing on some legs here. Nieve is causing some problems. People are beginning to suffer. Sean has suggested that perhaps he's not a rider who would be able to ride 50 kilometres by himself. He has the advantage, of course, of both of the... Really now it's just up this one, straight down the other side. We can see how fast he can go down. And then on to the Passo Giau. But the gap slipping a little bit, Sean, possibly due to the slope here. Sildreyers moving out for the intermediate sprint, but not really much of a problem today. And going again, Sean. Sildreyers continuing to go here.
Yes,
that's another go.
Well, I think he's just going for the sprint there. He will surely just knock it off again and just wait for the other 3 breakaway companions. I would not think he'll continue on here, but 57 seconds in advantage for Nieve. It's going to be a difficult one here, because he's in that situation now where he's out there in front. What do? Do I totally just cut my effort here, or continue on and get up this climb as far as possible? And it's a difficult calculation to make. If there's going to be some attacks maybe from the better climbers, probably better for Neve to continue on and be ahead of that, and when some of the other ones, if they do come up, well then you're already up ahead and you don't have to match the attacks out of this group of big favourites.
Yeah. Russo leading them over the line. And they're all strung out in one line. Oh, look at that, Sean. Then what, 25 riders there now?
Yes.
If that.
Yes, 25 riders. And I don't see Sandy Cassar is the one I haven't seen there in that group, who was very much in the general classification. We talked about intent and in the general going into the start of this morning stage. I don't think he was there on that flash we see of all the big favourites going through.
Yep, Hanu not there. This is interesting. Did you see Pozzovivo go through? I think so. Well, far from just knocking it off, Sean. I can see Pozzovivo, halfway down the line there.
Difficult to see him.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
Concentrate.
Far from knocking it off, Silderez has carried on.
Yes, it's surprising what he's doing out here today, because at Neve we can see he's slowing up, and that's probably part of the reason as well. Neve did not want to continue because he realised that with 48 seconds he was only just going to ride himself totally empty and pay for it later on the day, and he's made the decision to wait up for the group here.
So is Silderez the hare? Is he been the man who's been sent out there for I don't suppose he is, but
he doesn't know himself. We can see him there. He's fiddling with his radio and he's talking to the director. What do I do here? Do I continue or do I wait? And it depends on the tactic of Astana, of course, because if he can continue on and get up this climb a bit, maybe we could see Tirolongo trying something on this one, whatever the tactic is within Astana, but at the moment is not good for him because the gap is coming down very quickly, and I think Silderez has given his all for the day. He's very much at the end of his energies for today.
Michele Scarponi in the middle of your shot. Damiano Cunego just ahead of him. There is Ivan Basso setting this sort of tempo pace. Caruso, this is the way they like to ride. Three tall, strong riders here on the front now. Then Cunego and Scarponi from Lampre, followed by Diego Ulisi. Rodríguez is all by himself, as per usual, the pink jersey. Nobody around him. That's interesting. The other teams, the other big teams, Lampre, Liquigas, and even Garmin Barracuda have more than one man in here. 3 men in for Astana, soon to be 4 when Silderez comes up for Ryder Hesjedal. But again, the pink jersey left to his own devices here, Sean, is really down to his own strength here.
Yes, and it's not a good position, of course. We're still with 42 kilometres to the finish when you're in this group of 25 plus riders, and no team with you is always concerning. Is Moreno there at the rear? No.
Yes, that's Moreno.
Yes,
117 just at the back there.
So Moreno is clinging on for the moment.
Clinging is the word, I think.
Yes, and that's it's a little bit of a comfort when you know that there is a teammate there, because if you have a mechanical problem, that would be where the teammate would be very valuable. On the descent, for example, if you have a flat, or even on the climb here, you could just take a wheel from him. It's important that you have at least one teammate with you, but not a good situation for Rodríguez, where the other teams, we can see Liquigas still 3 riders, we can see Lampre still with 3. When you see that out in front, but depending on how you're feeling as well. If you're really feeling good on the day, well then you're not too concerned. You have the confidence. When the form is good and you're really feeling strong, everything is good.
Serpa and Samara caught. Nieve has already gone back into the this breakaway here. The only Euskaltel man in here now, and it's going to be hard work for him now. He's going to have to try and hang in there, having ridden all by himself. Depends how strong he really feels. Silderez, but he's looking around going, well, not like you say, Sean, not really that sure, just waiting for them to arrive now. But that means they've got 4 men, 2 workers and 2 co-leaders here. 2 co-leaders for Lampre and Cunego, and really Scarponi is the big man. Rodríguez does have Moreno at the back. Is Moreno just taking it easy? Is he clinging on, or is he just taking it easy? You'd have thought he'd have been up with his boss. if that was the case.
It could be also a tactic. If you sit a long ways, down in the group here, just sit on the rear. The other teams will say, well, yeah, it doesn't look good, and they don't just think about him here. With Liquigas, just keep on riding. So we could be surprised by Moreno, because he's a real good rider on this style of stage, so we could see more. We could be very much up there in the final climb, and he could start doing some work for Joaquim Rodríguez.
Yep, it could be a tactic. It's a bit of a bluff. Christian van der Velde losing a bit of contact here. This is Jose Serpa. He's just going to have to ride his own race now, I'm afraid. And it seems to have all been falling apart for Androni in the last couple of days. Their big team leader, Jose Rohanu, has been a massive damp squib for them. And Jose Serpa up the road, and there's no other Androni rider that I can see in this group at all, Sean.
No, I don't think there's anybody left there.
No, I don't think so. I don't believe so. Lampre have 1, 2, 3 riders on the front. Capecchi in second spots. Basso at the back. Still Damiano Caruso is really piling on the pressure on the front. Fantastic bit of riding. Rider Hesjedal is being marked and lit by Joaquim Rodríguez. Rodríguez is concerned about Hesjedal because he thinks he's the best time trialist in the leading contenders, and he's probably right. Sergio Enyo still hanging in there behind Paolo Terralonga, and Cataldo stay here as well. Just a shade over 40 kilometres, 1.6, we won't argue, to go to the finish of stage 17. They are on the Forcella Stolanza climb. Second category climb, and rises up to about 7% average in the last 6 kilometres. And with Liquigas had been forced to chase Euskaltel, or up the pace anyway, to bring back Mikel Nieve. It's put people under real pressure. We've still got the massively difficult Passo Giau to go, and they've whittled the peloton down to about 25 riders, Sean, and they're all in one big long line.
Yes, and not surprising that in the one line we can see the way Liquigas are pushing on at a very strong pace. At this point in the race, still over 40 kilometres to finish, and the group has, just dropped off to be a very small group of big favourites, about 25, maybe 28 riders here. And it's going to be a difficult final. We can see from Sky as well, they've got the 2 riders which are up in the general classification. They're certainly in there, and it's all about numbers now and how good the numbers are as well, because if you have 3 or 4 riders from a team, but if they're just hanging in there, just about there, well, then they're not going to be much good to you, because the moment somebody put in an attack, you're going to lose 1 or 2 of them very quickly. And we can see Astana is the one who have the bigger in numbers.
Yes, well, you say that, but look at this man here. Now, we saw him earlier when they were shutting down Kevin Sildres, Mikel Nieve, Samalau and Serpa. Was already puffing and blowing and pulling a few faces around that Kruisinger, and he's a good man for hiding it. He has a sort of style and facial expressions that don't particularly show his problems on the bike, but he is suffering. I don't think he's going to be there on the Passo Giau, and I'm not sure Gadre is either, by the look of the way he's riding. Tiralongo suffering as well. Rodríguez still looking okay at the moment. Hesjedal sits behind Diego Ulissi. That's a fine ride by Ulissi. Look at this pressure being put on the front by young Damiano Caruso here, Sean. Some riders really beginning to suffer here.
I think everybody is suffering a little bit because of what we've been through already in the race. We have had 17 stages, and we have a lot of very aggressive racing, and today has been an exceptionally difficult day from very earlier on, which I think riders would be looking at the route of today and saying, well, the final climb, it should not be too difficult until that point, or maybe the penultimate climb of the day, but it started out so early in the day, and I think a lot of riders are feeling the effects.
There is Kruisinger. He has with him Daniel Kangert, and I think he's going. I think it's over today for Kruisinger. Yep, He's definitely cracking. And look at Sylvester Schmidt, Sean, here. I think there probably is a tactic. Moreno is marking Schmidt. The two of them are at the back. It's the two big climbing domestiques. He's gone. Goodbye, Roman. It's not happening for you today. And he looked under severe pressure when they were shutting down the breakaway, and now he's just gone pop, Sean. It's over.
Yes, he's pretty much on the limit here at the moment, and 40 kilometres to the finish. I think the top of this one we have 37.3 kilometres, so there's quite a number of kilometres to get to the top, and when you lose contact like that, well, it's going to grow out of 40-50 seconds before you get to the summit. And no matter what sort of descent you can make, you're not going to be able to do that, because Liquigas, they will be made aware of that. They will continue on at the pace they're making, and when they get to the summit, they will just keep on pushing it down the descent. And this is where Liquigas, we're talking about the tactics. People are saying, why is Liquigas riding on the front so much? This is part of the answer to it. They have made the race real difficult, and Kruisinger is the first big favourite who seems to be coming under pressure because of the big pace setting and the pressure being pushed on all the time by Basso's team. Yep,
he's gone off the back. He's cannot hold the pace of the rest of them, and Romain Koisiger, you can see him there by himself. He's just going to have to limit his losses as much as he possibly can. He can descend really well, but as you say, it's going to be super difficult. And if you can't hack it on this one, Sean, you ain't going to do it on the next one.
Well, it's going to be more difficult on the next one, unless you go through a bad patch. Maybe he didn't eat in time. Sometimes you can get that as well. 40 kilometres on the finish where you start eating a little bit too late, and there's a period there where you get a little bit, you hit the wall or the hunger knock, as they say in bike terms. Get some food into you, get some gels into you, and you can recover. But the problem is here, when you lose contact, and then the other teams and the other favourites will be made aware of that. They will push on that little bit extra, and to close down when you're just with one teammate, unless he can just come around to you. Now he's hanging there at 50 metres, 40 metres, and if he can continue on doing that and get close to the top of this one, possibly he could come around and recover for the next line.
I fear not. Actually, he's got 2 kilometres of kicks up again here. There's a slightly flatter section they were just going through, and Tanel Kanget, the Estonian rider, was pacing him back up, but now it kicks up again. Will he be able to get back in here? This is the real question. Romain Koisiger, the first of the big favourites, beginning to suffer. I can't believe Francesco Faeli is still in this group. I'm sure it's him. He's been up there in the sprints. There he is. Well, there are some riders just hanging in here on a good day, Sean, and Peter Stefano, by the way, is the other rider trying to hang on to the wheel of Romain Koisiger here, or just taking the ride with him. Still suffering. And 2 kilometres, just under 2 kilometres to the summit of the Forcella, and Damiano Caruso takes an energy gel. Well, I think it is a tactic, Sean, at the back, with Sylvester Schmidt has not been up at the front at all, and he's just taking a, quotes, easier ride at the back, and I think the same for Moreno. We will see them come into action on the Passo Giau. I'm pretty certain of it. That's magnificent. Look at that. Wow. That took a few weekends to build, didn't it? We've got some left over for a patio. Sergio Enyo just behind Paolo Tiralongo. Rodríguez out of the saddle. And Tanel Kanget is still waiting. But Romain Koisiger, I fear, is showing us today, Sean, that he will not be able to win the Giro d'Italia.
Well, at the moment is looking that way, although he hasn't really totally blown. He's holding on, but is still growing out a bit. But the way he looked when he lost contact on the rear end of the bunch, I thought that gap was going to grow out very quickly. It's not the case. We can see now he has 100 metres down on the end of the group of big favourites. If he can keep on doing that, because we are getting close to the summit now, and he can make a real good descent, as we know, so he could get back on the descent and get back into the main group. But the final climb of the day, the Giau, it's going to be a difficult one. Difficult to see him, recovering to that extent and being able to stay in with the favourites.
Yeah, Tanguy keeps looking over his shoulders as they're coming towards the summit of the Forcella Stalanza, and they're going to rocket down the other side. It's a difficult technical descent. That isn't it, thank goodness. Difficult technical descent, which Kreuziger may be able to regain contact on, because he's a very good descender and he hasn't lost too much ground at the moment, but I fear for his well-being on the final climb of the day, the Passo Giau, which is much steeper than this. And there are still super climbing domestiques waiting in the wings. Moreno for Katusha and Schmidt for Liquigas. Another hairpin taken by Damiano Caruso, so impressive. Then behind him, Eros Capecchi. Then Ivan Basso. Then the first of our two Lamprey riders. Damiano Cunego pacing at the moment. Michele Scarponi, and Roman Kreuziger is in a world of pain. And this is the most dreadful place to be in, Sean, mentally and physically, is it not?
Yes, well, it's mentally it's a difficult one here when you're one of the big favourites for the race, and there's still 25 riders about in the group, and you just get the feeling, get into that difficult situation where you cannot follow just the pace being made by the domestiques of the Liquigas team. As we can see now,
could have helped being helped.
Yes,
could Italian help.
I don't know why he's riding on the front.
He's Italian.
Well,
he's got nothing else to be there. He's good in the sprint.
Yes.
What other reason would he be there?
I think he's getting a little bit carried away that he's in this group, and he says to himself, I can't understand why I'm here riding on the front of the bunch of the big favours on a climb on a stage like today. But for Kreuziger, it's a difficult one, to when you start losing ground at this stage in the race as well. We're the penultimate climb, still 40 kilometres when you start to get into difficulty, and when you think of what's to come, there's real difficult killer of a climb, the final one of the day. It's hard. It's hard, to just keep on your keep concentration, but depend on what you have left in the tank as well. If you're totally empty, well then, this gradient here is really going to kill you, and you're going to lose second by second very quickly.
Well, Fielli's up here, of course, to ride to the top of this GPM, because Rabottini is in the blue leader's jersey, and if he can go over the top and effectively limit anybody else getting the top mountains classification points, then he will do. But why he's up there in the group is an amazing feat. And Tanel Kanga, not a noted climber, is clearly suffering far less than his team leader, or one of his team leaders, Romain Kreuziger. They've left one man with Kreuziger, but Tirolongo is still up the road, and he said he will do his own thing today. I think that's exactly what they've been told, just do your own thing. So Fielli took the points over the mountains, or the GPM point there, and now what are we going to do on this descent? Who's going to drill it here? Are Liquigas just going to control it? I'm not sure anybody's really got the energy to come around it. Ian Gardner asking the question, do cyclists have a poker face, not show anguish to other riders? They certainly do. Now the big man for that, the man who was most famous for that, Miguel Indurain, just completely blank, emotionless face, always wore his shades, and it was so difficult to tell whether he was suffering or not. And then suddenly there'd be a twitch of the lip, Sean, wouldn't there? And the corner of the mouth of Garb would start breathing heavily, and you knew he was under the cosh. And then suddenly, when his face cracked, that was it, he was gone.
Yes, and of course with Miguel, we see it so little in his career.
That's it, you notice it, yeah.
It was noticeable, but some guys can sit there on the bike, no movement at all, they have a good style, and you can't see it on their face, and suddenly they just start losing contact. But with Kreuziger, we could see the faces were being thrown for quite a while.
Absolutely, normally so good, and looking as though he was suffering catching Silderese. Now he has gone. Will he get back with 35.9 to go? Live pictures here with 34 kilometers to go. Roman Kreuziger being distanced on the climb of the Forcella Staulanza. Sitting in behind teammate Estonian Tanel Kange to try and get back on before the final climb of the day, the brutally hard Passo Giau. 9.8 kilometers of unrelenting climb of 10% average. We said that some riders would just be sitting back, waiting. Well, the 3 riders that were at the front for Liquigas have become 4. Look who has moved up over the top of the Forcella. It's Sylvester Schmidt. The plan then to keep him under wraps, to keep him without any work to do until the final climb of the day. And Lamprey, we've seen them employ this tactic. We've seen Schmidt come up and they know they're in for a big fight. Moreno too has moved up to the shoulder of team leader Joaquim Rodríguez. He was marking Sylvester Schmidt all day. That was his clear intention. The orders were watch out for Schmidt because you have to match him pedal stroke for pedal stroke on the Passo Giau. You are our super climbing domestique. That's your job. So he sat with him at the back of this group. Whenever the splits have occurred, he stayed with him, followed him, made sure he knew where he was. And now Schmidt moves up to the front. Moreno moves under the shoulder of Joaquim Rodríguez and says, okay, boss, are we ready? What do we do? There's 4 of them. There's only 1 of me. Or 2 of us, should we say. And this is Roman Kreuziger. He is such a good descender. But the gap, I fear, is quite big now. And the rest of the Liquigas domestique, Sean, are just going to absolutely hammer it as much as they can into the bottom of the Giau and leave Schmidt and Basso to finish the work when they can.
Yes, I think they're just continuing here. They do not seem to have got really excited about Kreuziger losing contact. They just continued on making the descent at a real good pace, and of course when you look what's out there to be done, the Giau climb, they all know that this is going to be a really difficult one, and the calculation is that Kreuziger, if he's in difficulty in this penultimate climb, well then he's going to really suffer on the final climb of the day and continue on working on it. And we can see there, you know, the team are just doing the work as they have been doing so much, and Sylvester Schmidt is going to, you know, stay here in the slipstream and wait until we get onto the climb and just put in that infernal pace setting on the front.
It does, doesn't it? Infernal is the right word, actually, Sean. Not a word you use very often, but absolutely accurate for this. 9.8 kilometres of a climb. Whoop, shall we avoid the dog in the pink jersey? 9.8 kilometres of a brutal climb of the Passo Giau. And then we just catapult ourselves into a 17 kilometre descent. And what I think Basso is concerned about doing is keeping himself right up there as much as possible. We're almost at the bottom of the climb, Sean, at Selva di Cadore. Let's have a look at where exactly we are. Look at the horrible profile of today. There we are, a little bit more of a drop down and then into the Passo Giau. Well, the weather is pretty good today, thank goodness, for some of these men. I'll tell you what, some of these riders have obviously ridden in the Giro d'Italia before, Sean, but not in the same sort of positions or favouritism as they are at the moment. Riders like Domenico Pozzovivo has come out of the Giro del Trentino as the overall victor and showing he can really, really attack hard. They're putting riders like him under severe pressure by riding so hard all day. Yes,
and that's the tactic of Basso, just to make the race real difficult for the likes of Pozzovivo. You know, a small, lightweight rider, but really great in the climbs. And if you make the racing very difficult for him in the earlier part of the day, in the mountains especially, just keep working on it at a very, very hot pace, well then he will be not as not as powerful in the final climb, and I think Liquigas for the moment with cruising girls seems to put him under difficulty. Will it put other ones like Pozzovivo, like Gadre, and when we say put them under difficulty, they might not attack as much as we would expect them, or would, as much as they would like to attack maybe 6 or 7 kilometres on the top of the climb. They might just wait a bit further because they're not feeling as good as they would like to be.
Ivan Basso waiting to try and get good pace from Sylvester Schmidt, who's third in line here. The super climbing pole. Kunigo just behind Basso, marking him at the moment. He and Diego Ulissi, I fear, will be used up for the climbing efforts of Michele Scarponi, but you never know. Passo Giau is such a long, nasty climb. Moreno of Katusha has moved up, still sitting behind the main body of riders. Christian van der Velde made it back into this group quite happily. He, after his rear puncture, he is here, as is rider Hesjedal of the Garmin Barracuda team. And Hesjedal has been quiet all day. It's all been follow for him, and why not? Liquigas once again making the pace. We're almost upon the mountain, Sean, and soon there's going to be some very, very hurt faces. And look, there's even on this pace, there's little gaps appearing.
Yes.
Here we go.
I think it's going very fast at the moment, and we can see there that little gaps appearing, but I don't think that's. It's just that there were a little bit of a turn there in the road. But it'll be interesting to see now what way they will negotiate this climb. Liquigas are going to continue on at this pace, certainly, but for how long is the question.
Stage 17 in the Giro d'Italia, one of the biggest and most fearsome ones in this entire Giro d'Italia. 27 kilometres to go. Liquigas forced to control the race a little earlier than they perhaps wanted to by the attack of Michael Nieve on the second climb of the day, the Passo Duran. And now with 27k to go, they are on the Passo Giau. Chasing on like crazy here is Romain Kreuziger. Kreuziger put under pressure on the Forcella, the second category climb we've just gone over the top of, and has not managed to remake contact on the descent, despite having Daniel Kanget with him, the Estonian. And into the bottom of the climb they go. And off the back of the peloton for Liquigas. That looked like Schmidt for a minute. No, Schmidt.
Yes.
Sylvester Schmidt. Has he got a problem? He must have a problem. He's moved up, or he's been sitting in the back, lurking in the back all day, and then suddenly he's moved up to the front. He's lying third at this point here as you see them go underneath the banner, and suddenly Sylvester Schmidt has stopped at the back. He must have a mechanical problem or a puncture or something, Sean, because I can't see why on earth. Look, he has. Arm is up. Oh, that's a disaster for Liquigas. The best played man... I'm getting too excited here. The best laid plans all going to waste. He's going to use up so much energy, and that man there, Joaquim Rodríguez, would have seen that, as will every other favourite. Schmidt with his hand up, going backwards when he should be leading them from the front, Sean.
Yes, and unfortunately mechanical at the totally wrong time. Basso is really going to miss Schmidt on this climb to keep the pace really high, and some riders, will be happy with it because they know that if Schmidt gets onto the climb and starts doing that pace, if you're feeling a little bit in difficulty already, well then they're going to be happy with that, as we can see here.
There he is. That's just his hand up in the air there. He's waiting for the... But that's the equivalent of having a sprinter puncturing at 6 kilometres out. That's exactly the same. Schmidt has a problem. It's not a puncture, I don't think. Oh, that is a disaster for Liquigas, as Diego Ulissi is beginning to drop back here, so he can no longer contribute anything to the effort of Lampre should they need him. There's a few looks of panic here, actually. Ulissi thinking, crikey, I don't need to be dropped now. I still need to be there to help if I can. on the Passo Giau, but it is very, very steep and very unrelenting here, Sean. These are the cream of the riders in this year's Giro d'Italia. Eros Kopecky leads Ivan Basso. Oh, Moreno suffering. Moreno too is going out the back here and just trying to cling on. Well, that evens it out a little bit more. Schmidt has gone, Moreno has gone. Maybe he'll claw his way back in, but he doesn't like the camera looking at him. That's not a good sign. If the camera turns its attention to a rider and he looks up, flashes those eyes in a sort of furtive, I don't want to be looked at sort of way, it usually means he's in trouble. Kopecky setting a good pace, and now Scarponi sitting on the wheel of Ivan Basso. Liquigas have decided to try and kill off as many people as possible today, that's for sure. Look at Pozzovivo, he's just moved up slyly onto the wheel of Ryder Hesjedal. Sergio Enyo in his wheel. Brilliant riding once again by the young Colombian. Gadre sits behind, I think it's Inchausti. Duran is still in here as well. Cataldo is in here. Pozzovivo has another climbing companion in here as well, I would guess Brambilla. Look at them, Sean, look at them disappearing off the back, and Moreno's gone. Moreno's about 10 or 12 bike lengths back here.
And he ain't the only one. We can see there's 5, 6 riders starting to lose contact. We can see the gaps between them, two bike lengths between them, and already on the beginning slopes of this one, they're starting to lose contact.
Thomas de Gendt. Too steep for him. Gendt chewing the handlebars there.
Brushigin also in difficulty there.
Yep. Hesjedal sits on the wheel of Scarponi here. You can see Cunego beginning to suffer. He looks over his shoulder. And look at Pozzovivo. Moves up smoothly. Still turning that big gear he does for such a small guy.
Cunego also not comfortable here. We can see the way he's just looking around there, and Pozzovivo comes around him very quickly.
Hesjedal not comfortable either, I don't think. Kopecky is beginning to drag in as much air as possible. That's it, he's done. Oh, Gadre's in trouble. John Gadre in trouble. Tirolongo in trouble. Whoa, welcome to the Giro. 25 kilometres to go on the dreadful Passo Giau, and Astana's chances have gone bang, Sean, because Tirolongo is suffering off the back now, and Kreuziger has gone again, and in the space of 10 kilometres, both of their big contenders gone.
Yes, it's turning out to be a real bad day for Astana, with Tirolongo just in trouble very earlier on this climb, and there's a long ways to go. It's almost 10k, and there's some really killer sections in this one. Basso, unfortunately for him, he's lost Sylvester Smith. He's such an important man. We did not really see, it looked like a mechanical, but Basso just continuing on to make the pace now with 3, 6, 7 riders in his wheel, and then a little gap back to 3 other riders. Everybody just fighting, and still with 7+ kilometres to the top of this
crazy.
Giau.
Crazy. Basso being forced to set the pace now, and not one soul is going to help him. And why on earth should they?
And who is able to help him?
Wait for it. Pozzovivo is going to go. Pozzovivo is going to attack. He might wait another kilometre or two, but he's been smoothly working his way up at the moment. And Caruso, go. Rigoberto Urán still staying in this group. He has been suffering in the last couple of days, and Scarponi is working hard to stay on the wheel here, as Sergio Enyo is having the bad day today. The best young rider, the young Sky rider, they've been swapping good and bad days, has Rigoberto Urán and Enyo. And Enyo is gone as well. Off goes Brambilla. Oh, this is fearsome stuff by Ivan Basso. This is a great ride by Basso. Scarponi has stayed in there. Hesjedal has stayed there. These are the men who will win, or one of these men will win the Giro d'Italia. Basso with 25 kilometres to go. Hesjedal takes up the pace making. Scarponi, I think, is suffering a little bit here. Oh, Enyo has lost 50 bike lengths already. Duran will be the next to go, I fear. He's hanging in there at the back, but at this sort of pace, if it keeps going, I fear he won't be there any longer. Hesjedal sits on the wheel. He's got a great riding, and so is the pink jersey of Joaquim Rodríguez here. Here's Cunego. Everybody has to ride at their own pace on something like this. What a nightmare if you're having a bad day. Basso sets pace at the front. It seems to have evened a little bit, Sean. It's incredibly steep, this. It looks like it may have even, but he's been putting the pressure on. But he's now looking around to see who's going to share that pace.
Yes, I think he's making the calculation now. If he put in too much of a big effort, well, then he's open to attack. So you always have to keep something in reserve. And there's still 6 kilometres of this, plus 6 kilometres to climb here, and we've seen the way the group just blows apart. But sometimes on the beginning of a climb, when you hit it to get into the rhythm, riders have difficulty, and all depends what happened up front here. As we see Basso, he just ups the pace a little bit again.
Come on, put a little more gas through the motor. And Basso is the man for me who's been riding into form during this the run-up to the Giro d'Italia. In the first week or 10 days suited him very well. His team have been helping him all the way. There were lots of questions about whether he's been used up completely. Oh dear, the mask of pain.
And this is where Sylvester Smith would be so valuable to even Basso, just to make that pace here for a number of kilometres, and just to see who would, the next one to crack. And Basso, of course, he's in this situation now. Well, if I ride here and give it 100%, then if I get an attack from some of the other favourites, I'll not be able to match it. So you always have to make that calculation. I think that's what he's doing at the moment. We could see that he looked about, see who is there, and then make a calculation on that basis.
Look at them, all looking at each other. They all know that this is the group. These 6 men, 5-6 men, they all know that out of this group will come the winner of the Giro d'Italia, I think. Just about everybody else is going to lose so much time that even on the Friday and Saturday, it's going to cause massive problems for them to try and work their way back. It may be a totally false assessment, but I don't think so. Gardere, Nievi, Ennio, Cataldo, Inchausti, and Cunego. Oh, look at the pitch of that climb. Oh man, that's so steep. It must hurt so much. And Basso is just controlling the pace, turns the wick up a little bit, then lets it the flames subside just a little bit. Rodríguez is riding well within himself at the moment, Sean. He looks as if he's just, the nerves in his face, he's looking at everybody. But his eyes trained on the back of Scarponi and Basso here.
Yes, well, he's concentration big time, you can see, in Joaquim Rodríguez's face there. Again, how good is he? And it's very difficult to make the calculation from here, and unless we have somebody who can put in an attack with the 6 riders we have in this leading group now. We did see Rigoberto Uran, who got into difficulty but got back into this group, but nobody really looking going the attack. But Pozzovivo sitting there, if he has got anything fire left in his belly, he has to go in the attack. But there's still time, 23 kilometres, just under 24 kilometres to go, and the top of this one I think was about 17.5 to the finish.
Well, he has. Okay, GD, we get the message. He has to go. This is Hesjedal. Is he turning up the pressure? Yes, he is. Oh, look at this rider, Hesjedal. Looking good, and he's the real danger man here for everybody, because he's a brilliant time trialist compared to the likes of, say, Pozzovivo or Rodríguez. He's by far the best time trialist here, and just testing a few legs, forcing Basso to up the pace again, gets onto the wheel. But you're right, Sean, if Pozzovivo has anything, he must go now, he must attack now, because I don't think he'll hang on the descent. That's the thing. If they really push it. Bit of testing going. Don't you just love these shots where you can just see riders like Scarponi looking around, seeing who's doing what. He's always looking, flicking eyes from one side to another, checking out where everybody is. Rodríguez, intense concentration. backs of the necks of riders ahead of him, just gauging the distance between them when they up the pace a little. This is further down the mountain. Scarponi always looks drawn. His eyes looked heavy and drawn when he starts to put in major effort. Remember last year he was one of the few men to try and go off after Alberto Contador in these big climbs when Contador just danced away, and he couldn't do it. You'd have thought maybe Pozzovivo or riders like that would have seen that. If they have anything in the tank, they'd have seen that last year. They know the sort of rider he is. Likewise, Basso as well doesn't like that upping in pace. Scarponi looks very uncomfortable. If they have anything left and they can attack at any faster than Basso is going, and he's setting a really awesome pace here at the front, then they will put riders like Scarponi and Basso under pressure, Sean, because they simply don't like responding to that quick stuff.
No, and I think the situation at the moment with a tiny group of big favourites, some of the big favourites here in the lead, the sudden acceleration, I'm not sure if anybody has got that at the moment. Pozzovivo may be the only one who can do it, and that is the question now. Will he have a go 3-4 kilometres from the top, because there is still a sufficient amount of time. We're still about 5.5 I reckon to the top, and that is a lot on a climb like this. And is Pozzovivo capable of doing it? Rodríguez as well, if he's on a real good day, and he could be sitting there making the calculation, well, I will hit these guys at 2.5k before the top, and really go for it, because he's that explosive type, and then the descent he can make that so well. And if he has got the feeling that he's on a really good day, I'd be not surprised if we see the pink jersey attacking, but there's a lot of time to do that yet.
I was just going to explore that possibility with you, actually, because he looks reasonably comfortable, and I was going to say within the last K of the climb, just explode off the front and go rocketing down the other side, because we know he's a very good descender. And Pozzovivo looks to be less comfortable than I would imagine here, but he's got enough presence of mind to go back and get a water bottle from the commissaire's car. Duran hanging in here well today at the moment. I don't know, Sean, but I was looking at Scarponi. It looks like he might have been, in the effort, intense effort that he's put in, he might have even bitten his lip or something similar. It looks like he's got a little strain of blood hanging down from on his chin. Shows how much effort they put in. Is that Duran going on the attack? Yes. Rigoberto Duran taking up the pacemaking, and Ryder Hesjedal gets into the wheel. I've said it before, Scarponi just looks like an old star biker. He looks older than he actually is. It's a craggy face, and Duran looking comfortable today compared to what he has been, Sean, in the last couple of days.
Yes, well, at the moment he's looking a bit comfortable, but 3k further down the climb he looked to be on the rivet, lost contact 2 or 3 bike lengths. But sometimes riders, when you get onto the climb, the first couple of kilometres, if the pace is really high, and it was coming onto the climb of Giau, we see the Liquigas, they just rode into it at full gas, and to get their rhythm, some riders find it difficult in that first 2k, 3k, and maybe that was the problem. But we're certainly, a marking situation at the moment, as we can see now. Nieve is, coming back up through the cars here, and that's because our 6 leaders, nobody wants to push on here, all looking at each other and all playing the waiting game.
Yep. Hesjedal's going to have another dig. Just looks that way any second now. He's looking across to see where everybody is. He looks comfortable, more comfortable than maybe some of the others. He's already up the pace a little bit to see how things are going. It was Basso's Liquigas team that really drilled it into the bottom of the climb. And of these 6, Sean, Hesjedal clearly the most proficient at the time trial, although Basso will, if he gets the position to be in the pink jersey or close to the pink jersey, he'll run him a fairly close second. Hesjedal is much better time trialist on paper, but it depends on how much you want to win your home tour.
Yes, and how much you finish up with at the end of 3 weeks racing. And at the moment, Hesjedal looks pretty comfortable. Did not seem to be in the red zone at any point on this climb in the earlier part of the earlier slopes of this one.
Go again, Hesjedal. Just ups the pace very slightly. Still Pozzovivo hanging in there. Rodríguez looking around him. Just dancing out of the saddle just a little bit. Surely they're not going to wait, Sean, until the Friday and the Saturday to kill off their rivals here. If you can get a few, Rodríguez, for example, if you can get a few more seconds, as you say here, and Pozzovivo, those two riders, if they can get more time over their big rivals, their more accomplished rivals at time trial and so forth, they will do. They have to.
Yes, and I think that everybody is suffering. It's the question is now who is suffering the most here, who's close to being on the limit, and if we get some attacks, well then I think we should see that. And if Pozzovivo put in an attack, if he's capable of doing it, and there's a reaction, well then we will see who's got the legs of the big favourites here, of our 6 leaders. And we see Neve, he's the one who's coming up now, and he's the danger one, because if he comes up, gets a little bit of time of recovery in the slipstream of the big favourites group here, he would go in the attack, and the position he's in general classification, he would be allowed maybe to ride off if he's got it, if he's got the, anything left to be able to do that.
I think he will have. But the other thing that could happen, Sean, is Gadre up by himself. And he too is not too far behind the cars. He's sort of in no man's land at the moment. Coming up towards this tunnel. I think, Sean, that the arrival of Mikel Nieve may act as a catalyst, as it sometimes does, for riders like a Pozzovivo to up the, or somebody to up the pace, because they can see other riders are coming across. It's the first rider who'll come across, and they'll know that if they continue on this pace, they might well be joined by another 1 or 2 riders.
Well, I think, again, from experience, and all the riders here would have vast experience. When you're riding like this on the climb, you have a feeling that there is going to be somebody to come back. And we could see Hesjedal, when he turned a lefter there, he was looking down to his left, and he could see that there were riders very close. As we can see here, everybody looks to the right and they can see who's coming up. So they would have known that the riders exactly who was just off the rear, 10-15 seconds off the rear of them.
Bastos pace setting. Gadre said he needs to go on the attack today and shake the race up. At the moment he's just trying to get back with the front group.
He's attacking to get back in there.
Exactly. And Nieve doesn't look like he's got in the legs here. He's finding it difficult to make it up. Closed the gap very quickly. He started to close the gap very quickly, but he seems to be struggling now, Sean, a little bit.
Yes, and I think we see Basso maybe just push it on a bit on the front there, and that's when you see how strong the rider is coming up. When it's really slowed up in front, they start to come back and looking quite good, as Nieve did there, but now he seems to be suffering a little bit. And if there's a few more, if there's some more attacks, or if somebody push on, as Basso is doing here, we can see now there's a little bit of more urgency in this group. For how long?
Yeah, for how long is the question. Cunego and Chop coming up to the rear wheel of Brambilla. It was really that explosive pace early on, Sean, as Liquigas drove on into the bottom of this climb, the Passo Giau, that just blew everything to pieces. I mean, the whole group, 25 riders, something like that, went bang, exploded completely, and we were left with these 6 guys.
Yes, and what a pity that we lost Sylvester Smith, because if he was on his usual good climbing legs, well, he would have put on some show here, and I don't think we would have 6 riders together in this leading group at the moment.
As it is, it's been left to his team captain, his road captain, Ivan Basso here, to a lot of the pace setting. Behind Scarponi and Hesjedal hanging, and now Hesjedal sort of gulping in air now. He looked to be comfortable. Maybe he's just going through a little bit of a bad patch at the moment, Sean. It happens all the time, doesn't it? You feel okay, and then you just dip into into the red a little bit too far, and then all of a sudden you're struggling to get back onto terms again, or just to keep it under control, fighting to keep it under control whilst still maintaining the pace. Then it comes back to you a bit again if you can just get that little bit of recovery, and then it might go away again, time and time again on a climb like this.
Yes, you can go through a lot of different feelings on a climb, and of course on the beginning of this climb, as we've mentioned, the way we came onto it at such a fast rate, and the first couple of kilometres were really fast, and that's where it blew that group of 25 plus riders to pieces. Now it has settled down, and we can see that everybody's just working away at it. We've just gone through 20.7, 17.8 was the top of this one, so they're inside the last 3 kilometres, and Basso is starting to up the pace a bit here, and that's the point where you can start upping it. If you're feeling good, you can afford to do the last 2.5, 3k, push it on, and Basso seems to be getting the real serious phase on once again.
He does, and Duran seems to be grimacing a little bit now at the back of the group. This is Brambilla, Johan Chop and Damian Okunaga at the head of these 3 here. And the Movistar rider is in Chausti, who's in trouble. I think Ryder and in Chausti are both in this group. This is Nieve. He's had them so close in his sights, but just the most dreadful feeling, not being able to close down the gap. 28 seconds back to Mikel Nieve, 46 to Gadre. Pozzovivo on the far left of this group. Joaquim Rodríguez is still there, he's still looking. I think you're right, Sean, he may well give it a huge dig in the last 2 kilometres, kilometre and a half, or maybe even less. Just if he can get 15, 20 seconds of a gap, 30 seconds of a gap, he'll go rocketing down the other side, and they'll all be forced to chase him.
Yes, and he's the rider who can do that this century as well. Pozzovivo doesn't look like he's got the legs, because as we get inside 3 kilometres to go, not putting in an attack, unless he can really put in a super attack and take a big amount in the last 2 kilometres, because if he takes a minute and a half at the summit, well, he's going to lose half of that on the descent, if not more. So he's leaving it quite late. I'm afraid maybe he doesn't have the feeling that he can do anything here.
If Rodríguez goes, Hesjedal will go with him. Scarponi will try to respond, I'm sure of it, and try and put Basso under pressure on the descent. Duran too is a good descender. Pozzovivo will be off the back if they all descend like a stone here. Scarponi once again looking across to see where his rivals are. Oh, super intense concentration. It's been an impressive ride today by Joaquim Rodríguez. He's ridden by himself all the way, Sean, and Moreno couldn't stay with him in the end. It was lucky, I guess, for Liquigas, having lost Schmidt, that Moreno hasn't got the legs either today. But 20 kilometres to go, less than 3 kilometres to the top, but a very impressive ride by Rodríguez all by himself.
Yes, looking quite good at the moment. He hasn't had a situation where a problem where he would have needed a teammate. So far, so good. He's just ridden, on the coattails of Liquigas and the other teams who wanted to take it up, as we see Hesjedal in the earlier part of the stage. So there was no need for a teammate, but it's always nice to have one with you. But unfortunately, Moreno wasn't on his best day here, and it would have been interesting to see as well, if Moreno was here, would he start making the pace for Rodríguez on this climb? And that all depends how Rodríguez is feeling. We can see him there, he's concentrating, you can see it on his face big time, but has he got the legs is the question.
Yep. Just saw Jean Gadre. Jean Gadre just going through the 20 kilometres to go mark. Third in last year's Giro d'Italia, Jean Gadre. And Gadre, I think, is not going to be up on the podium this year. Not by the look of it. I don't think he has the climbing legs. Clearly Scarponi for the first time coming to the front of this race, maybe feeling, Sean, that he needs to keep some sort of pressure on, maybe fearing exactly what you've suggested, that Rodríguez or somebody similar, Rodríguez or Hesjedal, will attack over the top of this climb and just spring the advantage on them.
Yes, and he's the same as Basso. Scarponi, he likes to keep a good strong pace, and the attacking, he doesn't like that style of riding on the climbs. We're inside the final 2 kilometres, the top here, and he is for the first time taking it up on the front.
Canadian rider Hesjedal in the blue and black and white on the right hand side. In the middle, Michele Scarponi, the man who was given the win of last year's Giro d'Italia after the ban of Alberto Contador. So he comes with the number 1 on his back. Ivan Basso, twice a winner, 2006 and 2010 in the lime green of Liquigas. It's his team who've dominated the pace setting in this race. Domenico Pozzovivo in the sky blue on the right hand side, all blue, winner of Giro del Trentino, and so impressive on those super tough climbs. But it's a different league here. It's all right winning a domestic tour, even of the stature of Giro del Trentino, but he's come into here, he's been talked up as a potential favourite. Everybody knows his weaknesses: time trialling, descending, the cold, he doesn't like that. But so far, Sean, he's had his stage victory, and very impressive it was too.
Yes.
But as an overall contender, it's beginning to look as though he might suffer.
Well, at the moment, he's quite a bit further off in the general classification, at over 3 minutes down. Is today a tactic? If he goes in the attack, is it a bit too early for him? Is he going to wait for the mountain top finishes and try his all there?
33 seconds back to Nieve, slipping back a little bit, and Nieve will have he's been suffering now coming up to the top, because he's been on the attack once again already. Still snow on the ground here as they go over the top of the Passo Giau. It's 20 years since the great Laurent Fignon, double winner of the Tour de France, winner of the Tour of Italy, of course, came to a complete stop on this climb, the Passo Giau, riding for Gatorade towards the end of his career, and just was in bits. I mean, the weather was foul, but he was just in so much trouble that his teammate Dirk de Wolf, I'm not a climber, but not a climber in the truest sense, Dirk de Wolf, although he had won Liège-Bastogne-Liège that year. Dirk de Wolf had to stop and give him his clothing. He was so cold that he stopped at the top of the pass, got a rain jacket, and then started to, stopped halfway up the pass, should I say, got a rain jacket, kept on going upwards, and he was being pushed by Dirk de Wolf, who had to stop, take off his own rain jacket and swap it, because his was thicker, so that the great Laurent Fignon could continue. Amazingly, he recovered overnight and started the stage the next day, but a dreadful day. And when you get to that stage, Sean, when everything goes from you, there is nothing you can do, is there? It doesn't matter how good a rider you are, there is nothing you can do.
Well, they just struggle to get to the finish, and when the conditions are not suitable as well, and if you get the wet, cold conditions on a day like today, and you're also suffering, and when the body gets tired, well, you get cold very quickly, much easier, and it just makes the day so much more difficult. And luckily today that the weather conditions are right, because it would have been an unbelievable difficult day if we had the conditions we've had in the past number of days.
The late Laurent Fignon, of course, he was known, he had great ability to recover. 500 metres from the top, and what on earth is Pozzovivo doing setting the pace with just 500 metres to go?
He's going to make the descent.
Okay.
He's not a climber anymore, he's changed.
If you say so. Rigoberto Urán really having to grit his teeth here. Whoa, Scarponi is suffering though. He won't be too worried with 500 metres to go, but why on earth didn't he do this before? Mind you, of course, Scarponi may be thinking, I tell you what, I can make it to the top now, it won't be too much of a problem. But if, look at Rigoberto Urán suffering it, and Rodríguez at the hands of Domenico Pozzovivo, a great little climber. Well, what on earth is he doing? If he'd have had that, Scarponi is definitely on the back foot here. If he'd have had the energy to do that, Surely he could have done that a kilometre out, kilometre and a half out. A little bit of inexperience, Sean, or just think he doesn't have the legs and he's only got 500 metres in him?
Well, that is the question now. It's surprising that he didn't try and do something earlier on, because he had nothing to lose. It's not like Basso, for example, who's very much up in the general classification, the time trial, even the situation he's in the moment. If he can hold that up to the final on Sunday for the time trial, he's still in with a chance. But Pozzovivo, who is so far off at the moment, over 3 minutes down, he needs to do this and much further out. Did he not think he had the legs? But he might regret it when he sees Scarponi losing contact.
And Duran has gone.
Yes.
Duran was trying so hard and he has gone. And Rigoberto Duran will catch him again on the descent, as will Scarponi. Look at them all. Look at the way he's put every one of them on the rivet, honestly. Every single one of them, and they'll just be looking at him going, why, you're so strong, boy. What in the hell? In the back of their minds, they'll be saying, why didn't you do that earlier? Maybe he feels he can descend. Maybe he's got a newfound confidence, Sean. I have no idea. This is Cunego still coming towards the top and making the descent now. Ryder, Hesjedal, Ivan Basso, Domenico Pozzovivo. Scarponi goes over the top here. Got a bit of ground to make, and look at the devastation that's put in, Sean.
Yes, well, of course, when you have riders in front of you, 50, 70 metres in front of you on the uphill, when you come over the top, they're totally out of sight. But I think he should be able to make it back into the group, although Hesjedal seems to be pushing on. We see Joaquim Rodríguez there as he came over the top. He just took 3 or 4 bike lengths from the rest of the guys he was with and put on his rain jacket. Looked very comfortable, and when you're able to do that, it says to me that he wasn't totally on the limit when you can still do that over the top of the climb.
Yeah, that hurt. I think that hurt everybody going over the top. There are a lot of gritted teeth. Does make you wonder, doesn't it? Riding up towards the top is Sergio Pradilla and Benjatin Chausti, Thomas de Gendt, Daniel Moreno and Johan Chop. With Damiano Cunego setting the pace. It would be great to see what's going on the descent though. With 50 metres to go for these men. Over the top they go. 1:48 back. Hesjedal looking comfortable on the descent at the moment, looking back at Basso, and Rodríguez has gone past Pozzovivo, who seems to be okay at the moment. 15 points for Domenico Pozzovivo at the top of the climb. 1:48 is the gap. Scarponi is chasing back on. He's got some cars in front. He's not too far off now, Michele Scarponi, but that hurt. That really hurt. And one thing, the only thing you could possibly think of with Pozzovivo, Sean, is that he was just seeing how good the other guys are in the sort of climb that we might have later on. We've still got Friday and Saturday, and this time we have to run down to the finish, and he knows that he isn't so good on the descent. Maybe he's thinking, if I can stay here, if I can give them an attack, if I can stay somewhere close by the time we get down here, I've got other days where I can attack and it's going to finish uphill.
Yes, well, we have 2 uphills, and Friday and Saturday, and Saturday's one, of course, is a major one on the Stelvio. So maybe he's making the calculation that he can do enough, but it's a very, very risky one if he wants to do anything in the general classification. If he has got the legs here today, he should have tried something and go 4 or 5 kilometres from the top, and if he got that advantage of 15-20 seconds, well, then there could be a rivalry there. And the number of riders in that front group are so little, if they start marking each other and nobody wanted to do the pulling after him, he could pull out a big advantage and make this descent lose a little bit. But again, he could take a minute and a half or a minute, and that would be of huge importance. And I think it would be the tactic he would have to use today if he had got the legs enough.
He didn't look to be suffering hugely. I mean, when you compare him to all the other favourites, Sean, that he put under pressure, then Rigoberto Urán was just blown out the back door, as was Scarponi even earlier. And Pozzovivo, as he pushed on, every single rider in that group was grimacing and gritting their teeth and having a terrible time trying to hang on in that last 500 metres, as Scarponi is coming back to the rear wheel of Rigoberto Urán here. Surely, that's the only thing I can think of that Pozzovivo here was calculating. But perhaps he feels he can descend a little bit better. He's had a bit more experience with these bigger guys now. He doesn't like it in the wet. It's not today. The roads are reasonably wide and it's dry. And maybe he feels that he can put them under pressure on Friday and Saturday on uphill finishes, and wanted to test them. And all of them were absolutely riding at their skin to stay with him up over the top of the GPM. Hesjedal leading them down, not pulling out a huge gap here though. Rodríguez is second now. He's gone past Basso. Good descending by Scarponi. Look, he's almost onto Urán, and Urán doesn't hang around either, Sean.
No, although Urán having difficulty to follow here, and Pozzovivo is the one who is staying with Basso. So not looking good for Urán if he cannot stay in the wheel when Pozzovivo can do it. And we can see Joaquim Rodríguez, he's just past Basso there and went on and tried to follow on and catch up with Hesjedal.
Yes, of course, Urán was blown out just before the top of the GPM. You could see him gritting his teeth, and he was indeed the person who went off the back last. Rodríguez is almost onto Hesjedal, and these two are going to continue on now, and they're going to ride as hard as possible because they know that the men behind do not like this. Hesjedal, the ex-mountain biker, born in British Columbia. I think he lives in Vancouver now. Almost the bike going almost off the road then. It's difficult for the motorcycles to keep up with bikes. They're much quicker than the motorcycles down here, just because they can just take the corners so much quicker. And Hesjedal continuing on his way, and Rodríguez is almost with him. He's another really good descender. Scarponi has Scarponi got a problem? Oh, I think he might have overcooked something and just backing off a bit here, because Urán is pulling away again here, Sean.
Overcooked the motor.
Could be. Big motor burnout. Basso and Pozzovivo still chasing hard. And Scarponi is 20 seconds back on them now. Oh, he's definitely knocked it off here, Sean. Definitely.
Yes.
Surprising.
What's the problem here? Is it a mechanical problem? No, cramp.
No, cramp. Oh dear. Well, it happens. And he gave everything to try and stay up with them. And when Pozzovivo went on the attack, he was dropped. And he's given everything to try and stay up with them. And on this descent, Sean, pushing down hard, but look at Basso. Whoa, and Pozzovivo. This is a great bit of descending by the man we've actually been taking the mickey out of, to be honest. See, curse the commentator. Almost happened. Okay, yeah, all right. I'll shut up. You take over commentary for the next 20 minutes or so.
Let's talk about Saturday stage. Chapeau.
Yeah, well done. Kept it upright.
Kept it upright, and he's doing a nice job here. And Basso, we can see when it gets a little bit technical, lose a little bit of ground, but then on the straight he has that time trialing ability, can just power back on. But Pozzovivo, as we can see, still battling in there, and now a little bit of looking about again. Hesjedal is looking to see who's going to take it up, and that will help to knock off the pace a bit up with our four leaders.
Basso now takes over the pace setting here, or the leading down. Clips the apex, very tight indeed. I think Pozzovivo is working hard to stay here. Scarponi's at 30 seconds now. He's lost another 10 seconds or so. Difficult to recover from cramp so easily, Sean, isn't it? I mean, if you can stretch the legs out a little bit, he will get some sort of recovery from it, but the likelihood is that when you're really suffering from cramp, and he seems to be a little bit better now, that he's going to come back again if you're not careful.
Yes, well, the moment you start putting on the power again, you can feel it coming back, and we can see the way he's pedalling there as well. He's not his normal style, and just it's a terrible feeling. And you can do nothing, only just knock off for a while and start shaking your muscles a bit, as we see Scarponi doing there, and hopefully it will pass by. But during that time, you can lose quite a lot. On the descent, of course, it's better if you have it on the flat and you have to start pedaling. Well, then you lose a huge amount of time very quickly.
Hesjedal, who did a lot of the work earlier, is now sitting at the back. Here's Scarponi. And turn those pedals a little bit freer. 8.6 kilometers to go. There's an uphill finish to this as well. It's not hugely steep, but about 6%. Wide swing round to the right. Inside the last 10 kilometers here on stage 17, from Falzes to Cortina d'Ampezzo. We've had some huge winners here in Cortina in the past. Luison Bobe, Fausto Coppi. And now we have a group of 4 men. The race absolutely detonated by Liquigas. The pace they set going into the final climb of the day, the Passo Giau. And their team leader, Ivan Basso, remains here in this leading group and really gritting his teeth. And Hesjedal, the Canadian rider from Garmin Barracuda here, looking good at the moment. Domenico Pozzovivo of Colnago there in the sky blue, as this looks like Uran coming back now. Great riding by Rigoberto Uran. He suffered like a dog on the last bit of the climb, and he's gritting his teeth because Domenico Pozzovivo, for some reason, we know not why, he left it late. Possibly we've speculated he's just testing the legs of the big favourites for Friday and Saturday stages, which finish going uphill. You don't know, because it's going to be difficult to peg back 3 minutes on them in those two stages. But he absolutely exploded out the blocks with about 500 metres to go and put every single big favourite here completely on the rivet. And Rigoberto Uran was blown away, as was Michele Scarponi, who was the first to go from this group. And Scarponi chasing on after Rigoberto Uran, suffering cramp and having to back off. He almost caught Uran, he was almost on his rear wheel, and then the dreaded cramp set in. And now he's just going to have to suffer all the way to the finish today, Sean, because there's no way of really getting rid of it, not 100%.
No, and sometimes it can clear up and you don't have too much problems. Other times you can feel it just there, and the moment you really start putting on 100% pressure, it's just coming back, so you have always to knock off a bit. But Scarponi, we can see there he's lost quite a lot of time, and what a stage we've had today so far with Scarponi losing out. The question is now, how much will he lose? Tirolongo and Kruisinger, they're the big losers, Astana, and we haven't seen any of them in this group chasing. We can see Cunego there with a group of riders, but nobody from the Astana team at all, and Tirolongo totally blew as well, I think, when he lost contact.
Absolutely. No Tirolongo, no Roman Kreuziger. Both of them falling short on the climb of the Passo Giau. Tirolongo flying out the back of the group along with everybody else. Kreuziger had gone on the previous climb, so looking so good for Astana with 2 joint leaders. Both of them said that they ride their own race today, or at least Tirolongo did, and it's not happened for them. Hats off to Domenico Pozzovivo here, because there was an interview in Gazzetta dello Sport. Everybody knows who follows cycling and that Domenico Pozzovivo is not that happy on the descents. There was an interview with his team manager, Bruno Revrevi, last week, talking about Pozzovivo, and said, do you think he can win? He said, yes, I think he can probably win. What does he fear? Does he fear the other riders? No, he said he doesn't fear the other riders at all. What he doesn't like is descents. He doesn't like riding in a bunch downhill. He doesn't like the rain. He doesn't like the wind. He doesn't like cold weather. He's got good weather today. There's not too much of a bunch. And on this descent, he's really pulled out all the stops and done a fantastic job. He suffered big time the other day when his teammates had to bring him back in the wet. But here in the dry, he's done a brilliant job staying with them. And clearly he's gone up to a new level of bike riding. Winning Giro del Trentino and also being in with a shout here now has lifted his game something tremendous. Scarponi inching his way back towards the leading riders. If so, that's a great ride. Maybe the cramp seems to have eased up a little bit as Rigoberto Urán has got on here. Look at Pozzovivo. I mean, really, hats off to him. Hesjedal looks like the rider who's suffering a little bit in the last 2 kilometres or so, and a great ride by Urán.
Yes, a great comeback, because we could see out front that they were sharing the pace. I think Basso doing the big amount of pulling on the front, but the other riders, Joaquim Rodríguez, we see him taking it on the front. Hesjedal was up there as well. So for Rigoberto Urán to get back, when you lose contact on the climb, you make the descent. Unless you're a real daredevil descender where you take huge risks, you have to make a huge effort to get back in there. But Scarponi seemed to be working in race radio, saying 15 a moment ago, now 11 they're giving. So it looked like that he was getting together better there. We could see him there in the last shot of him.
Obviously suffered cramp dreadfully just then. This is 5 kilometres to go for these two chasing riders, Mikel Nieve and John Gadre. Gadre falling short of his own expectations. But this is a great ride by Scarponi now. The cramp seems to have been under control. He seems to know that he's homing in on them again now. He can only hope that in the run for the line at the end that he's not going to cramp up again. Hesjedal leads them through this corner with then Basso in the lime green, the sky colours, the blue band down the back of Rigoberto Urán, who's just taken a moment or two with 3 kilometres to go to get it together and start taking the front again. Scarponi can see them, that's for sure. Look, there he is. They can see them through the bend. This is a great comeback by Scarponi. He was dropped by Pozzovivo and the rest of the men, and look at the way he's been descending. That's a great bit of riding by Michele Scarponi. Scooter had to pull up pretty sharpish then, as Michele weren't going to stop for anybody. Pozzovivo, descending of the day from him, as well as Scarponi coming back on. And we're going to arrive at the line, Sean, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 men.
Yes, Scarponi is coming back. Will he continue on and just go straight by?
Look at the ground he takes out of them by taking much more corner speed into the last 2 kilometres then. And Scarponi has made the contact. Urán and Scarponi have chased back on, and he'd be looking at the backside of that little man Domenico Pozzovivo and cursing his every pedal stroke, having made him suffer for the last 500 metres up and then all the way down again. Basso leads them, flicks the elbow, and Hesjedal says, okay, I'm not going to come through. I'm going to start looking. Now we're looking for the stage win. But Basso says, right, well, I'm not having any of that, I'm off. Oh, who's going to go? Hesjedal is the danger man, and they've seems to be the one most eager to respond, Sean.
Yes, well, of course he has to respond, because Basso is, the man third in general classification, and for Hesjedal, who is really up in a good position, 30 seconds down on general in the second position, he cannot allow Basso to take anything here from him second-wise.
Good move by Basso. He's been aggressive through this last climb, and good descending by him to bring them back again. He's now trying to wind the pace up again. Swinging around up the cobbled section of the climb here. Under the kilometre to go banner. It's been a day where we've seen those men who cannot win the Giro d'Italia go out the back door. Romain Koisinger, Paolo Tirolongo, Damiano Cunego, John Gadre, they've all gone. And if they can't hang with the big boys today, I think they're going to suffer on Friday and Saturday when they're uphill finishes. Domenico Pozzovivo, brilliant bit of descending. I take my hat off to him. He's stayed with these men on the descent, and also Michele Scarponi. What a marvellous recovery, suffering from cramp. He's got back, as has Rigoberto Urán. Do not put it past Urán here to go for this, as Rodríguez will as well, because he's sitting in the back here, Sean, and he's got that sort of finish on this slightly uphill section.
Yes, that is the question. Who is, the better sprinter here? Joaquim Rodríguez, I would reckon that he is probably the fastest. Rigoberto Urán maybe as well, he might have got it, and it's all about how much, a little bit more each one has left here.
Basso is just concerned with taking as much time as he possibly can and driving on. 450 metres to go. Urán grits his teeth in the black, nearest to the camera here, running around the outside. He's really come of age here. This is a huge mountain stage, and he's fought like a Trojan to get back. 350 to go, and Scarponi it is who opens it up at the front. Scarponi driving for the line, having suffered the cramp, hoping he doesn't get it again. Sits back in the saddle. Basso comes around him this time, and here comes Rodríguez with Urán in his wheel. Basso drives hard. Hesjedal coming through. It's going to be Rodríguez who takes the stage win. Basso second. Hesjedal third, then Urán. Pozzovivo misses out in the sprint in the end, but that's a great ride by all these men. Now, what is the gap? Back to these men here. Nieve in the orange, Johan Chop for BMC in the middle. Daniel Moreno for Katusha, getting it a bit more together. Thomas de Gendt. You can't keep the man down, can you? He hasn't been able to go with the big favourites here, but actually, Sean, they're in a better position than they thought they might be. A lot of these men have got together and they've gained a little bit more ground on the descent.
Yes, they have made a big bite into the advantage of the big group of favourites, the 6 men there, because what are they going to finish at? A minute and a half down, maybe less. So it's not a bad day for some of them, and De Gendt, of course, who's the surprising one. The other ones you would expect them to be there, in the chasing group, but maybe not so close to the big favourites.
Next place is being contested, and De Gendt's going to go for this one as well. I'm sure of it. On the left-hand side, you can see him coming around, is he not? Nope. I think they're just happy to get home. Moreno, I think, takes the sprint for that one. Brambilla. Almost at the end of his rope, I think. Sean, that was an epic day. Joaquim Rodríguez has defended that pink jersey extremely well. Here is Paolo Tirolongo, along with the best young rider, Sergio Enyo. Faeli is the rider leading them home. This is smart. So Bruyneel has been on the podium in the Giro d'Italia before, driving for the line. He will certainly take a lot of time out of people on the descent. He's very good on the descent. Finishes at 2 minutes and 12 seconds. This is the Giro d'Italia, I think, over for Astana, Sean.
Yes, at the moment we can see that the time gap is growing out, and here we come with Tirolongo, Cataldo, Henio, but it's going to be 3 minutes plus when they come over the finish.
Tirolongo, Henio, Cataldo. And Tirolongo leads them home. Point to be made by him. 2 minutes and 46 seconds down on our leading group. And there's going to be some big gaps by the end of tonight, Sean. That's for sure.
Well, I think it's, as we forecasted, today was a day where we would see and we could see who was not going to win this Giro, and we have a clear picture on quite a few of the riders that were very much up there, looked very, very in good condition, but not with it today.
Well, some real digging deep by Rigoberto Urán. Michele Scarponi, he is a battler, isn't he? He let it out from here thinking, I don't have the ability to sprint in this. Look at the way Rodríguez is capable of coming past him. Basso put up a bit of a fight. Rodríguez has the better sprint, but Basso driving for the line. He would have liked to have taken the stage, that's for sure. But the pink jersey suitably then takes the stage here over the Passo Giau. 4 huge climbs today, and that was a massive day. And look, there is a camaraderie, Sean, when these things happen. And we started off at the Valparola second category climb, 30k ascent in the second category climb, and then went on to Passo Duran, the Forcella Staulanza, and over Passo Giau, and it was Giau that completely exploded it. And look, Paolo Tiralongo mobbed by the press there. They want the reaction. Astana's day is done. Joaquim Rodríguez wins over Basso, Hesjedal, Urán, Scarponi. Pozzovivo loses just 2 seconds to the big favourites. And Chausti and Moreno coming in at 1:22. De Gendt at 1:22. Chop, Gadre, Nieve and Krunigo, as well as Sergio Pardillo, who's riding very well indeed. Gianluca Brambilla really looking as though there was nothing left in the tank whatsoever at 1 minute and 44 seconds back. But Tiralongo, Kreuziger, big losers today. Overall standings then. Remains Joaquim Rodríguez at the top, Hesjedal at 30, Basso 1:22, Scarponi, Rigoberto Urán in Chausti, Pozzovivo at 3:19 now, and Tiralongo at 4:13. He slipped such a huge amount. Well, will he be able to bring something back on Friday and Saturday? It's a very difficult day. But a marvellous group of favourites coming to the line here in Cortina d'Ampezzo.